Chapter 1. The boy's godfather and the Hogwarts admission letter. Hogwarts, in the headmaster's office. Oh my god, Professor, you really should come over here and see this. A witch wearing square glasses, a dark green robe and black hair tied into a high bun said in a surprised tone. Blake, this is indeed quite surprising. A silver-haired old man in a purple robe beside her side. At this inadvertent moment, some long-forgotten memories flooded into my heart like a torrent. The address is in the Muggle world. Is it a backup plan left by the family? No matter what, you'll have to make the trip this time, Minerva. In a suburban manor in England, a dramatic scene is unfolding at this moment. The office is decorated with classical furniture, modern artworks, and various valuable decorations, giving the entire space a luxurious and solemn temperament. There were men in black suits standing all around, and guns were placed everywhere in the room. It seemed that these strictly prohibited things were just ordinary things in their eyes. In the main seat in the center of the room, a young man was lazily leaning on a recliner. He was wearing a neat black suit, a dark brown bow tie with a silver edge tied tightly inside the suit, and a light brown shirt, which made his skin look fair. His black hair was casually draped over his forehead. In his hands he kept spinning a custom-made cigar-shaped chocolate. At this moment, two middle-aged men with nervous expressions were standing in front of him. This scene seemed so strange no matter how you looked at it, but it also seemed to be very reasonable. Your words are sincere, but I'm afraid I can't do it, Mr. Roth. Thomas spoke softly. No, you know, I will do anything for you, please consider it. The middle-aged man named Ross said excitedly. Mr. Ross, we have known each other for quite some time, but this is the first time you have come to ask me for help. I remember the last time we met was at the ball at Middle Manor. Yes, Lord Black, I still remember the first time I saw you. I knew at first glance that you were definitely not an ordinary person. As expected, you have now completely risen to prominence. The Black family's influence has spread everywhere in just 3 years. Oh my god, time has proven how good you are. Ross said excitedly. So, Mr. Ross, it just so happens that it is because of my hard work and excellence that you have this meeting today. To be honest, you never needed my friendship. You were afraid of owing me a favor, weren't you? When Ross heard what Thomas said, his face froze, but he quickly adjusted himself. I was afraid of trouble before. Thomas reached out and interrupted Ross, who was about to explain, and continued speaking. I understand. Mr. Ross, your transportation business is developing very well. You have connections with high-ranking officials in the police station. So, you are so glamorous, so you certainly don't need a friend like me, right? But it is absurd for you to come to me now and say, Lord Black, that I want you to do me justice. To be honest, Mr. Ross, you don't respect me. You don't treat me as a friend, and you don't even want to call me Godfather. As Thomas spoke, he stretched out the back of his hand, testing the intentions of the man in front of him. Sure enough, the next second Ross hurried forward, lifted Thomas's hand slightly, and respectfully bent his head to kiss the back of his hand. I hope you can help me, Godfather. When Thomas saw this scene, a smile appeared on his face. This is exactly what he wanted. To be precise, he is a time traveler who inexplicably came to England in 1988. Fortunately, like all time travelers, he has his own plug-in, collectively called a system. The system gave him the ability to speak foreign languages, otherwise he would have to pick up a dictionary and start learning from scratch in this world. The system is called the Godfather system, and according to the original owner's settings, although both his parents died, they left him considerable assets in a family business. With the help of the system and his forward-looking vision, in just 3 years, he managed this precarious underworld family and became one of the youngest godfathers of the contemporary era. Very good, Mr. Ross, as a friend of the Black family, I will naturally help you. Thank you very much for your kindness, Lord Black. Ross bowed respectfully, then sat down and began his story. Those two damn bastards, they defiled my daughter, but they were only sentenced to a short 3-year sentence, but my poor daughter is still in the emergency room, unconscious. Sir Black, I beg you to make sure these two damn bastards are truly punished. Of course, my friend, the Black family will help you deal with this problem, but... But what? Please tell me, Lord Black. Oh no, Godfather, as long as I can pay, I promise I will do my best. Very good, Mr. Ross. All the gifts from fate have been secretly marked with a price. The Clare family will help you deal with those two damn bastards, but a portion of your transportation business must be divided and handed over to the Clare family. That's not a problem, Godfather. As long as those two bastards are punished, I won't hesitate to punish them completely, not to mention partially. I would give everything for my daughter. Very good, Mr. Ross, I have already felt your sincerity. Now, it is getting late, please go home and wait for good news with peace of mind. Thank you again for your kindness, Your Excellency the Godfather. Ross and the man who was traveling with him stood up from their seats and left the room. Meow! Suddenly a cat's meow was heard. A yellow tabby cat suddenly jumped out of the window onto the table in front of Thomas. The next second, an incredible scene appeared. The yellow kitten turned into a witch in a green robe in a burst of light. Caw caw caw. There was a sudden sound of bullets being loaded in the room, and dozens of black gun muzzles were pointed at Professor McGonagall in the room at the same time. Among them, two young men in black quickly protected Thomas, holding the black star high in their hands. As long as Thomas gave the order, they could guarantee that the witch who suddenly appeared would be beaten into a sieve in the next second. Chapter 2. A green robe, a wizard hat, square-framed glasses, the image of an old lady, and the highlight is the tabby cat. No way. Thomas took a big bite of the chocolate cigar in his hand and tried to calm himself down. He knew that he might not have simply traveled to the past, but came to a world completely different from the past, a world of magic. Put your guns away, and everyone please stand down. I have something to say to, this lady. After hearing what Thomas said, everyone was very confused, but in this kind of underworld family, the relationship between superiors and subordinates is very strict, so everyone did not say much, but put away their guns, saluted respectfully, and left the room. Hello, nice to meet you, Thomas Blake. I'm Minerva McGonagall, the Deputy Headmaster of Hogwarts and the head of Gryffindor. You can call me Professor McGonagall if you like. Hello, Professor McGonagall. Thomas nodded, then pointed to the chair beside him and continued. If you don't mind, could you please sit down and talk about Hogwarts? Thomas said in a very friendly tone that his rule of survival is very simple, that is, never provoke someone who is stronger than you. After all, this world has always been ruled by strength. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for successfully entering the magic world. Rewards, Dark Magic Affinity, Learning Master, a key to the Black Family Vault, and a magic gift pack. Thomas couldn't help but gasp when he heard this. Although he knew his last name was Black since he traveled here, he didn't think much about it. After all, there were people with the same name in this world. But now it seems that his so-called family name must have a great origin. Of course, it may also be the help given by the system. He can't care so much now. Professor McGonagall nodded, then sat down and handed the envelope to Thomas. Originally these letters are delivered by owls, but since your situation is rather special, I came directly here. I hope I didn't disturb you, child. Of course, no interruptions, Professor. Thomas nodded, then reached out and took the envelope. There was a square-like emblem on the envelope, with 4 animals painted on it, a lion, a snake, an eagle, and a shrub. After tearing open the red ink on the envelope, Thomas saw the contents of the letter. While Thomas was reading the contents of the letter, Professor McGonagall was also looking at the boy in front of him. His black hair and black eyes, every feature of the Black family, revealed his identity. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry Headmaster, Albus Dumbledore, President of the International Confederation of Wizards, First Class of the Order of Merlin, Grand Mage, Chief Mage of the Wizengamot. Dear Mr. Black, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted to study at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Enclosed is a list of required books and equipment. The term is scheduled to start on September 1st. We will be waiting for your owl letter with your reply before July 31st. Vice Principal, Female, Sincerely, Minerva McGonagall 1. 3-sided plain work robe, black, 2. A plain peaked hat for daytime wear, black, 3. A pair of protective gloves, made of dragon skin or similar material, 4. A winter cape, black with silver buttons. Please note, all student clothing must have a name tag textbook. All students need to prepare the following books: The Standard Book of Spells, Elementary, by Miranda Goshawk, A History of Magic, by Bathilda Bagshot, Magic Theory, by Adalbert Waffling. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, by Newt Scamander, The Dark Arts, A Guide to Self-Defense, by Quentin Trimble. Other equipment: a magic wand, 1 crucible, pewter, standard size 2, a set of glass or crystal phials, a telescope, a brass balance. Students may bring an owl, a cat, or a toad. Parents are kindly reminded that first graders are not allowed to bring their own broomsticks. Thomas put down the letter in his hand. Professor, if you don't mind, can you rest in the manor for a day? Don't worry about the rooms. There are many guest rooms. I can ask the servants to tidy them up now. After all, you know my situation, Professor. My parents. Oh, kid, you don't have to be so polite to me. Introducing new students is exactly what we as professors are supposed to do. McGonagall looked at Thomas in front of him tenderly and said that in his opinion, Thomas lost his parents when he was young, and it must not be easy for him to guard the family business left by his parents in the Muggle world alone. Thank you, Professor. You're welcome, kid. Late at night, Thomas, who was alone in the room, opened the system's character panel. Host, Thomas Blake, age, 11, talent, leader, get to know the failed art student in the tavern. Firearms skill level 4, you can skillfully use some simple firearms. Learning master, reach the pinnacle of learning ability. Affinity with dark magic, Azkaban welcomes you. You can quickly master dark magic and its power will be doubled when used, while avoiding negative effects. Skills, Nun Warehouse, a magic gift pack. System, open the magic gift package. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for obtaining the skill Parseltongue, men who play with snakes are the most romantic. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Basilisk Egg, improved version. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the skill Avada Kedavra. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the skill Occlumency. Thomas looked at the reward with great satisfaction. With these skills, he could live a better life in Hogwarts. The next morning, Thomas gathered his close family members and gave them a plan for what to do after he left. Are you ready, kid? Of course, Professor. Professor McGonagall looked at Thomas and nodded, then reached out and grabbed Thomas's little hand, raised his wand high with his other hand, and shouted. Displacement. The next second, Thomas felt the scene around him begin to change rapidly, and finally stopped in a dilapidated tavern. Thomas's face turned pale. He forced himself to suppress the urge to vomit and tried to stand up straight, as if to make himself look less weak. Of course, Professor McGonagall also noticed this, and he reached out and patted Thomas on the back and said kindly. Kid, your performance is more than enough to surpass most wizards. Thank you for the compliment, Professor. Chapter 3. Oh, Professor McGonagall, how come you have time to come here? Would you like a glass of sweet butterbeer? A voice full of surprise sounded. It's Tom. Let it go this time. After all, I still have to lead the new students. Professor McGonagall replied with a smile. That's a shame. Professor McGonagall did not continue the conversation but led Thomas to a small patio behind the bar. Thomas, you have to look carefully at every one of my rules. Yes, Professor. Professor McGonagall looked at Thomas's serious expression, nodded with satisfaction, then stretched out his wand and tapped the wall quickly a few times. See that, Thomas? Count 3 along the top of the trash can, and 2 across it. Very good. The next second, the surrounding walls began to crack, eventually forming a 2-person wide passage. At the other end of the passage, many people of all kinds were walking on the street. Welcome to Diagon Alley, Thomas. Professor McGonagall spoke softly. Thomas looked at the scene in front of him and couldn't help but feel excited. He had finally arrived in the world of magic. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, the main quest is officially launched. Task 1, gain recognition from all members of one of the 4 colleges. By the way, kid, do you have money? Professor McGonagall looked at the dazed Thomas and suddenly asked, this is a very crucial question. Of course, it is not a problem to have no money, Hogwarts still provides generous subsidies to students. Of course, Professor, I have the key. Thomas said as he fished out the key from his pocket and spoke. Professor McGonagall was stunned when he saw this scene, and then he became more certain of Thomas's identity. It was very likely that he was a branch of the Black family that was stranded outside. After all, the magician family has a long history, so it is not surprising that 1 or 2 branches split off. Professor McGonagall came back to his senses, lowered his head and continued to speak to Thomas. Then let's go, Thomas, let's go to Gringotts first. After a while, the 2 appeared in front of a tall white building. Two fairies in scarlet and gold woven uniforms saluted respectfully when they saw the two people coming, and then a silver gate came into view. There are small words engraved on both sides of the gate. The general meaning was, "Come in, stranger, but be careful." In short, it was a warning, but Thomas didn't pay much attention to it, because he knew that it wouldn't be long before Voldemort would visit this vault, and a few years later it would be the Potter team. Both sides of the hall were filled with goblins in suits and ties, some were counting money, and others were handling business for wizards. Then, Thomas, led by Professor McGonagall, walked straight to a counter. "Thomas Black is here to open the Black family vault." As Thomas spoke, he took out the key from his pocket and placed it on the counter. The goblin looked at the black-haired, black-eyed young man in front of him, and couldn't help but frown slightly. Logically speaking, of the only 3 blacks left in modern times, one had married off and had lost the right to inherit the vault, and the other 2 were in Azkaban and would never be able to get out again in this lifetime. After all the members of this family died out, the Black family's treasury naturally became the property of the goblins. But now a young man claiming to be Blake suddenly shows up, which is really troublesome. Teacher McGonagall naturally noticed this as well. Since the goblin could frown, the amount of money in the vault must be very large. But as the deputy headmistress of Hogwarts, she naturally stood on the side of her students. "Why, is there a problem?" After hearing what Professor McGonagall said, the goblin sighed helplessly and adjusted his glasses with his hand, because he knew that he had to pay the money, but there are always exceptions. "No problem, please wait a moment," the goblin said as he took out a badge and placed it on the table. There are 3 crows at the bottom of the badge and a red arm holding a magic wand at the top. On the back, there are gold stars on a red background, and golden skulls and vines surround the badge. The crest of the Black family. Professor McGonagall recognized it immediately. "Exactly." The goblin adjusted his glasses and continued speaking. "Then let the heir of the Black family do the final test. Use your blood and drip it on the emblem. If your blood is pure, the emblem will naturally react." "Can." Without any hesitation, Thomas took out a knife and cut a small cut on his finger, and blood dripped onto the emblem. The next second, the emblem reacted instantly. 3 black crows seemed to come alive, spread their wings and flew out of the emblem, surrounding Thomas, and their golden arms began to wave their wands continuously. "Damn, it really is a black," the goblin cursed in his heart. All the evidence now points to Thomas as the heir of the Black family, and there is nothing to say. Soon it waved to another goblin to take its place temporarily. It jumped off the stool and walked out of the counter. "Come with me," the goblin said as he walked inside. "It's all right, kid." Professor McGonagall patted Thomas on the shoulder, then motioned for him to follow the goblin. A huge cave appeared in front of them. "Come to the car." The goblin waved his hand. As the 2 of them stepped onto the mine car, this simplified version of the charge began to run. After a quick slide, Thomas, with a pale face, got off the mine car with the help of Professor McGonagall. It must be said that this was really fatal. The gate is about 8 or 9 meters high. It is a huge golden gate with the Black family crest printed on both sides. "Okay, now please use the portkey." Professor McGonagall also took 2 steps back when he heard the goblin's words, then spoke. "Thomas, I'm going to leave for a while." "No thanks, Professor, I'm just opening the door." Thomas shook his head, then walked to the keyhole and turned it. Several red lights suddenly shot onto Thomas. Upon seeing this, Professor McGonagall immediately drew his wand, ready to rescue his students. "It's okay, Professor." Thomas spoke up to stop Professor McGonagall's actions. Bathed in the red light, he could feel his body functions becoming stronger rapidly. Of course, if Professor McGonagall entered the red light, it would most likely be a different situation. Chapter 4. The red light did not last long, which Thomas felt very sorry about. After a moment, the door slowly opened. The next second, a pile of golden objects came into Thomas's sight. Thomas vaguely remembered the scene when Harry Potter saw the small mountain of gold, but compared with this moment, it was nothing. It has to be said that the foundation of the 28 sacred families is far more advanced than those of ordinary nobles. 3 piles of gold, more than 10 meters high and so large that 8 people could hardly hug them, clearly showed Thomas what an old-fashioned aristocrat meant. And you have to know that the least valuable thing in a treasure house is gold galleons. 1 galleon equals 17 sickles equals 493 nuts. The quaint bookshelves were filled with books and magical materials. The most valuable thing to Thomas at the moment is a ring with the family emblem printed on it, which is placed in a box on the shelf. This is no ordinary ring. A huge space of 50 meters in length, width, and height was built using the traceless extension spell, which is roughly equivalent to a storage ring in the world of immortal cultivation. With this treasure, Thomas naturally didn't hesitate to take out large amounts of gold coins, materials and books. You can use the materials yourself or bribe the old bat. The books can also be used for self-study. As for gold coins, you don't need too many. About 7 or 8,000 will be enough. Thomas walked out of the vault happily with a huge sum of money in his arms. In the words of a certain great man, I have never fought such a rich battle. With the closing of the vault door, Thomas's journey to withdraw money was officially declared over. Professor, this is for you. As Thomas spoke, he handed the book Conjectures and Theories of Transfiguration to Professor McGonagall. Because he knew that if he wanted to win people's hearts quickly, it would not be enough to just say a few polite words and be polite, he had to come up with something substantial. As for money, a master of transfiguration has no shortage of it. Giving it out would not only be rejected but also be met with disgust. But it is different with books. This is too expensive. I can't have it, Thomas. Professor McGonagall quickly refused. Her character made it impossible for her to accept anything from her students. Of course, it would be fine if it were just some small things, but this collection of books was too valuable. Please don't refuse, Professor. I remember that when I first met you, you must have used some kind of transfiguration technique, so I took out this book to give to you. And if you hadn't brought me here today, I might still be in the manor, thinking about the next economic policy. No, Thomas, it's just my duty to bring you here. Believe me, Thomas, every professor at Hogwarts would do the same. But today it is you, isn't it, Professor? The value of this book to me is only to be gathered dust in the vault. It is of no use to me. So I hope it can play its value in the hands of useful people. Professor McGonagall looked at Thomas, who looked like he would not give up unless he agreed, and sighed helplessly. He reached out to take the book handed to him by Thomas, rubbed Thomas's head with a smile and spoke. Then I'll be welcome. Thank you, Thomas. Of course, Professor, it would be my pleasure to help you. Walking out of the door of Gringotts, all the goblins couldn't help but look at the backs of the two and sighed silently, because they knew that the possibility of obtaining the Black family's inheritance was almost zero. Then Professor, let's go buy wands next. Thomas suggested. He was very interested in the wizard's custom weapons. Soon, the two came to a shop. The golden sign on the door had peeled off, but the words on it could still be vaguely seen, Ollivander, making excellent wands since 382 BC. After pushing the door open, what caught my eye were two tufts of dazzling platinum-colored hair, one large and one small. Coupled with their signature look of looking at people through their noses, their identities were self-evident. Good afternoon, Professor McGonagall. Good afternoon, Mr. Malfoy. Excuse me, Professor McGonagall, but who is this person behind you? A new student at Hogwarts. But if Mr. Malfoy wants to know the child's name, he might as well ask it himself. Professor McGonagall said in a flat tone. To be honest, she didn't want Thomas to have anything to do with the Malfoy family, but she couldn't do that. After all, Malfoy and Black were blood relatives. What to do ultimately depended on Thomas's own judgment. Just as Lucius was about to speak, Draco, who had just obtained the wand, jumped out first and extended his hand to Thomas. My name is Malfoy, Draco Malfoy, and this is my wand, cool isn't it? Thomas looked at the proud man and did not refute. Instead, he smiled and stretched out his hand to shake it. After all, Malfoy's power was easier to utilize than that of Black, who was now in decline. Hello, my name is Thomas Blake. Oh. God, that's great, Thomas. Oh no, I mean, you're a pureblood too. What is a pureblood, Draco? Thomas asked in a puzzled tone, while Draco on the side had already raised his head, looking like the coolest boss. You've asked the right person, Thomas. Let me explain this to you. Children of pure-blooded wizards are pure-blooded, while children of muggles and wizards are half-bloods. As for wizards born between two muggles, they are called mudbloods. As one of the sacred 28 families, we are the most noble bloodline in the wizarding world. At this time, Professor McGonagall's brows were already furrowed, because in her eyes all the little wizards were her students, regardless of their status, and she treated them all equally. At this moment, she even regretted letting Thomas contact the Malfoy family. But the next second, her frown slowly relaxed. I don't think so, Draco. I think bloodline doesn't represent everything. Everyone has their own value, even muggles. How is it possible, Thomas? We are wizards. How can a mere muggle be compared to us? Yet. Thomas raised a smile, and then a blue light appeared on the ring. A golden desert eagle suddenly appeared in his hand, accompanied by the sound of a bolt. Bump. Chapter 5. Malfoy had already collapsed in fear in the corner at this moment, and not far from him, there was a small dark hole with a wisp of smoke above it. Thomas calmly put the golden desert eagle back into the ring, turned around and bowed slightly to the counter. I am very sorry, Mr. Ollivander. I will compensate for the damage that has just been caused. It's all right, Mr. Black. Garrick Ollivander smiled and shook his head, then waved his wand. Restored to its original state. The next second, the cave that was previously shot out immediately returned to its original state. Professor McGonagall and Lucius also slowly came back to their senses. The previous things might not work on adult wizards, but if little wizards below the 5th grade encountered them, most of them would lie in a pool of blood. Stand up, Draco, and stop embarrassing yourself here. Lucius said loudly, then turned and smiled at Thomas and spoke. Thomas, if you have the chance, please come to Malfoy Manor for a gathering. I believe Narcissa will be very happy to know that Black is still alive. After all, we are blood relatives. After saying this, Lucius didn't give Thomas any chance to speak. He grabbed Draco from the ground and left the wand shop. At this moment, the only people left in the store were Thomas, Professor McGonagall, and Ollivander. Ahem, are you ready then, Mr. Black? Certainly. Well, first question, Mr. Black, what is your dominant hand? Right hand. Very well, and please raise your arms, Mr. Black. Ollivander said as he pulled out a silver ruler with scales printed on it from his pocket and began to measure Blake's arm. After a moment, Ollivander took back the ruler and then pulled out a small box from the counter. Try it, Mr. Black. Cottonwood and unicorn hair. 11 and 3 inches. Courage and loyalty. Come on, give it a try. Thomas took the wand curiously, then waved it gently, and the next second a bright blue firework exploded at the tip of the wand. No. 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 Try this one, Mr. Black. It's made of elm and has a dragon's heartstring. It's 11 inches long and symbolizes power and nobility. As expected, an accident still happened and countless boxes fell to the ground. 10 minutes later, beads of sweat had already appeared on Ollivander's head. Ahaha, that's really picky, Mr. Black, try this. Yes, this is it, it definitely works. You would, the heartstring of the basilisk, 12 inches, implies that the holder has the power to control life and death. Wizards who possess it usually have strong personalities, extraordinary talents, and great power, and the heartstring of the basilisk just happens to strengthen this power once again. As Ollivander was talking, he seemed to think of some unpleasant memories, but he quickly put them behind his mind. At the moment, the affinity of the wands was his top priority. Thomas took the wand handed to him by Ollivander and waved it gently. This time there was no flame, no roar, and no accidents. Blessings and blessings come to you. Blessings and blessings come to you. Oh my god, that's awesome. Ollivander cheered with joy, as if he had obtained a magic wand. Thank you, sir. What's the price, please? 7 gold galleons, Mr. Black, no cheating. Thomas nodded, then took out 7 golden coins from the ring and placed them on the table. As soon as I walked out of the wand shop, I saw a little giant with a goatee and a little boy wearing round frame glasses walking towards me. Without thinking too much, they were Hagrid and Harry Potter. After all, this combination is really rare. Oh, Professor McGonagall. Hagrid greeted enthusiastically. Professor McGonagall smiled and nodded as well, and the two of them soon started chatting together. Harry Potter was also looking at the black-haired boy in front of him who was about his age and dressed in a suit. Hello, my name is Thomas Blake. Thomas said, smiling and holding out his hand. Harry was stunned for a second, then quickly shook Thomas's hand and spoke. Oh, my name is Harry Potter. It's nice to meet you, Harry, if I may call you that. Of course, Thomas. Harry said happily that he had just left his uncle's family and before that he had no friends or social life at all. Suddenly a well-dressed boy was willing to be friends with me. I was so happy that I couldn't contain myself. Thomas, we should go to the pet store. Of course it's nice to see you, Harry. Professor McGonagall smiled and rubbed Harry's head, then walked towards the pet store with Thomas. Harry Potter looked at the backs of the two and looked forward to his life in Hogwarts more and more. What kind of pet do you want to buy? The toad would definitely be crossed out first, as normal people generally wouldn't choose it. Then the next ones would be the owl and the cat. After thinking for a moment, Thomas gave his answer. Then buy a cat. Wise choice, Thomas. Professor McGonagall smiled brightly when she heard Thomas's answer. The two then walked into a store called Cat House. The shop is not big, but it is clean and has a wide variety of cats. Sometimes, chemistry is really something magical. Thomas confirmed his target the first second after entering the store, without even the need for the clerk to introduce him. He walked straight to a cage, in which was a kitten about 2 months old. Its brown ears, pirate face, and snow-white fur all revealed its identity, a ragdoll cat. That's it. The clerk was also stunned when he heard Thomas's words, but then he immediately smiled and greeted him. After all, the customer was Merlin. Professor McGonagall smiled at Thomas. So, what are you going to call it? Name? Oh wait a minute, Professor. Thomas said this as he lifted the doll up high to determine its gender, ignoring its protesting paws. This action made Professor McGonagall's smile freeze. I've decided, from now on its name will be Iris. Iris, what a nice name. Afterwards, the two of them bought a lot of school supplies together, all of which were put into Thomas's ring. Well, Thomas, it's getting late, let me take you back. Professor McGonagall was about to wave his wand, but was quickly stopped by Thomas. Professor, I want to go to the Black family's old house. Our Black family should have an old house. Chapter 6. Professor McGonagall was stunned at first, then nodded. After all, as the current legal heir of the Black family, Thomas should inherit the old house. Displacement. The scene spun again, and a townhouse appeared in front of Thomas. Number 12, Grimmauld Place, Thomas. This is the old house of the Black family. Professor McGonagall rubbed Thomas's head and said kindly. Thank you, Professor. Thomas's face was already pale, but he did not feel any nausea or dizziness. It could be said that the strengthening of the vault was of great help to him. As the door opened, a desolate atmosphere rushed towards us. Although the interior was very exquisite, it could not conceal the dilapidated atmosphere. Oh, my God, it's the Honorable Young Master Thomas who has returned. A cry of surprise suddenly sounded, and Thomas turned his head and saw a house elf standing not far away. However, it was very old, with loose skin and long drooping ears, proving that it had served the Black family for a long time. He was about 2 or 3 feet tall, with a head and eyes that didn't match his body, and he was wearing only a tattered pillowcase. Although Thomas knew the identity of the house elf, he could not show it. Instead, he looked up at Professor McGonagall beside him with a puzzled look. Don't be nervous, Thomas. This is a house elf. House elf? Thomas asked in a puzzled manner. Yes, all reputable families in the wizarding world have their own house elves. You don't have to be afraid of it, Thomas. For some reason, house elves are absolutely loyal to their masters. Hearing this, Creaker on the side immediately patted his chest and said excitedly. Creaker serves the noble Black for life. Creaker was halfway through his words when he suddenly fell to his knees and banged his head against the ground while still speaking. It's almost useless. I know the identity of the young master, but I can't go to the Muggle world to pick him up in the first place. Woo, 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 but there is nothing Crush can do. Crush must obey the orders of the noble Black family and wait for the young master's return. It's all Creaker's fault, it's all Creaker's fault. Thomas was stunned by this sudden operation, but he quickly realized that this was not an old tradition. Professor McGonagall on the side also spoke hurriedly. Thomas, give it orders, otherwise it will keep smashing. Remember to be strict, yes, strict. Professor McGonagall said a little embarrassedly. There was no way she could tell an 11-year-old child that house elves were all masochists. If she spoke nicely, they would not listen and would become aggressive. Thomas nodded when he heard this, and then said seriously. Crush, I order you to stop your stupid behavior immediately. It was obvious that Thomas's order was very effective. As the last syllable came to an end, Kreaker was frozen in place as if he had been cast under a petrification spell. But this state only lasted for a short while before he burst into tears, constantly complaining about his own stupidity and uselessness, but he did not continue to hurt himself. Well, Thomas, it looks like it's getting late. Since you've decided to stay here, I'll leave now. With the house elves, you won't have to worry about any trouble. It will take care of everything. Professor McGonagall spoke up. Well, thank you very much, Professor. You're welcome, Thomas. I look forward to seeing you at Hogwarts. I'm a professor too. After the two exchanged greetings, Professor McGonagall cast a spell and left the Black family's old house. Just as Thomas passed by a portrait, a sharp and piercing voice suddenly rang out. Damn it! Thomas turned around subconsciously, the ring flashed, and he pulled the bolt. Everything was done in one go, just as Thomas was about to empty the magazine. Klesh's voice suddenly rang out. Madam, this is the young master. The young master of the lineage that the old master separated from has returned. Thomas looked at the portrait. In the portrait at that moment, an old woman with luxurious clothes but a ferocious face and drooling eyes was staring at him. After a moment, the old woman in the portrait seemed to remember something. She reached out and touched the saliva at the corner of her mouth, then said with a seemingly kind expression. Oh, my poor child, I told you at the beginning that it is wrong to split up the family. The family should be completely together. What's your name, kid? Thomas Blake. Where are your parents? Why don't they come back? They're dead. What? The old woman in the portrait exclaimed, and then her eyes became more kind. Thomas, my name is Volga Black. If you are speaking by seniority, you should call me grandmother. Yes, grandma. Thomas nodded and said seriously. Suddenly, a gurgling sound was heard and Thomas scratched his head with an embarrassed look on his face. Thinking back, I seem to have not eaten anything since I left the house. It is still a bit too much for my current body. The old woman in the portrait obviously noticed this and spoke immediately. Oh, boy, my poor little Thomas, you must have had a hard time eating in the Muggle world, but it's okay, now that you're back, everything will be different. Kreaker. Come here quickly, you lowly beast, and prepare dinner for my little Thomas. If you let little Thomas get hungry, you will die immediately. Yes, ma'am. Kreaker said excitedly. At the dining table, Thomas looked at the sumptuous dinner and couldn't help but gasp. He had to admit that Kreaker really had some real skills. 10 minutes later, Thomas, who had eaten and drunk his fill, lay leisurely in the recliner, patting his round belly. Young master, the room is ready, you can go and rest anytime. Well, now then. Thomas nodded, then walked towards the room under the guidance of Kreaker. As soon as I opened the door, a breath of luxury hit me in the face. The head of the bed was inlaid with gorgeous golden patterns, like a work of art, bright and dazzling. But Thomas no longer cared about so much at this moment. His body was exhausted and had already reached his limit. He began to snore softly. Kreaker outside the door showed a happy smile on his face. After 10 years, he finally welcomed his new master, Thomas Blake. Chapter 7. Malfoy Manor. Dear, is what Xiao Long said today true? That kid, Thomas. That's right, Narcissa, the heir to the Black family is back. Lucius took a sip of the red wine in the glass and said lightly. Then should we go meet the child, or take him to Malfoy Manor, after all? No, Narcissa, this child is not as simple as we thought. As Lucius spoke, he waved his scepter and several letters appeared on the dining table at the same time. If Thomas was present, he would be very surprised, because these envelopes recorded several major events he had done since he came to this world. After a while, Narcissa put down the envelope in her hand and said in disbelief. How is this possible? Thomas is just a child. Nothing is impossible, Narcissa. The child in your eyes is smarter than we thought. Don't forget, your last name is Malfoy now. Over the years, some of the members of the Black family have died, or have been imprisoned in Azkaban and will never come out. Their visible assets and shops have been divided up and there is very little left. And we are one of the culprits who divided up his property. But after seeing our blood relative with my own eyes yesterday, I have some different ideas. Born noble, interests come first. He showed me a different future. Even if I haven't reached the top yet, I am willing to wait. It can be regarded as an investment. I will return all the assets that the Malfoy family has seized from the Black family. Thank you, dear. Narcissa said with a smile. No matter what, she was once a member of the Black family. Even though she now had the surname Malfoy, she still had some attachment to her past family. Not to mention, his once glorious mother clan was left with only this lonely child. Are you here? Lucius put down the wine glass in his hand and turned to look at the other side of the hall. At this moment, an old elf appeared there out of nowhere with a letter in his hand. Creaker. Narcissa said in surprise as she looked at the figure. Oh Miss Narcissa, oh no. Creaker seemed to realize halfway through his words that he had addressed himself incorrectly, and suddenly raised his hand and started hitting himself in the face, cursing. Bad Creaker, Creaker is such a fool. That's enough. Lucius shouted loudly. Of course, he didn't care about Creaker's self-harming behavior, but he didn't want to waste time here with a house elf. Give me the letter. Oh, of course, Master Malfoy, this is a letter for you from Master Thomas. Crush respectfully handed the letter in his hand to Lucius, then used teleport to leave the hall. After a moment, Lucius smiled after reading the letter. Narcissa, make some arrangements. Let's Xiaolong live with Thomas for a while tomorrow. It's still early before school starts, so it's a good opportunity for the two brothers to get to know each other better. In the Blake family's old house, Thomas was currently holding a book on dark magic in his hand, and casting the 3 unforgivable curses in the basement with a wand. Avada Kedavra Crucio Immortality Curse. I have to say that when casting the 3 spells, combined with the talent of affinity for black magic, he used it like a duck in water. Spells, Level 1 to 3 Mastery, Level 4 to 6 Mastery, Level 6 to 9 Master Magic, 1 to 3 Level Student, 4 to 6 Level Auror, 7 Level Legendary Auror, Professor, 8 Dumbledore, 9 Merlin. And he also discovered another wonderful use, that is, when casting spells, he can accumulate his magic reserves and improve his proficiency. No, casting the 3 evil curses requires a test subject. Thomas put down the wand in his hand and wiped the sweat from his head with his sleeve. There was a flash of light, and Klesh suddenly appeared in the secret room. Master Thomas, Kreker has delivered your letter to Master Malfoy. Very good, Klesh, I remember you had a locket in your hand. Thomas turned around and asked. Without. Give it to me, Kresh. Oh, yes, it is a very evil thing, Master Thomas. Master Regulus asked Kresh to destroy this evil thing, but Kresh failed. Kresh is really... Before Klesh could start to hurt himself, Thomas interrupted it immediately. A moment later, an S-shaped locket with emeralds appeared in front of Thomas. Pick me up, pick me up. I will give you power, authority, and eternal life. The world will rise and fall at your feet, and you will be the master of everything. A series of devil-like whispers rang in Thomas's ears, but they seemed to have no effect. Just when Thomas was about to marvel at the power of the brain-sealing spell bestowed by the system, an electronic system sound suddenly sounded. Ding dong, it is detected that the host is under a strong mental shock, and the self-protection program is activated. Ah! No, no, don't! After a heart-wrenching scream, the voice that sounded like the devil's whisper disappeared. At this moment, there were only 2 words in Thomas's mind. That's it. Destroy a Horcrux with ease? Master Thomas. What's wrong with you? Please don't scare Kresh. It's all Kresh's fault for giving this thing to young Master Thomas. Kresh is a bad guy, a bad guy. Just as Kresh was about to pick up a book beside him to punish himself, Thomas spoke. That's enough, Klesh, I'm fine. I have completely destroyed the evil soul in this pendant. Upon hearing this, Klesh, who was about to punish himself, immediately put down the book and praised with admiration on his face. Oh, as expected of Master Thomas, the great Blake. Young Master Thomas will definitely make the Black family glorious again. Thomas did not get carried away by Kresh's flattery, because he had more important things to do now. Go catch some bugs, Kresh. Remember, get lots of them. Yes, Master Thomas. Although Kresh did not understand Thomas's intention, he still firmly carried out Thomas's orders. After a while, dense swarms of insects appeared in the secret room, giving Thomas goosebumps. Fortunately, Klesh cast a petrification spell on these insects. So, Thomas, who had recovered a lot of magic power, stood up, pointed his wand at the bug and shouted. Avada Kedavra. Chapter 8. The next morning, there was a knock on the door of the Black Mansion, and a boy with platinum hair appeared at the door holding a large number of letters. The person who came was Draco, who was pulled out of bed by Lucius early in the morning. Before he could knock on the door, it slowly opened. "Oh my God, it's the noble young Master Malfoy. Young Master Thomas is waiting for you in the study." Kreaker said excitedly that because of his long service to the Black family, his pure blood concept was very serious. In response to Kreaker's greeting, Draco responded to the nose gaze very politely. "Take me to my cousin." "As you command, Master Malfoy." In the study, Thomas put down the Encyclopedia of Dark Arts in his hand and looked at Draco at the door with a smile. "Welcome, my cousin." "Cousin?" Draco answered in a somewhat stiff tone. Just before leaving the house, his father had strictly instructed him to be respectful to his blood relative. "Please sit down, Draco. Kreaker has prepared some refreshments. Although they are from the Muggle world, I think you will like them." Draco nodded, then put the letter containing the title deed and property in Klesh's hand. Then he sat down on the chair opposite Thomas and picked up a piece of chocolate, still with a slightly disgusted expression on his face. "Humph, even though this cousin of mine is of the noble bloodline of the 28 sacred clans, he has lived in the Muggle world for too long. How can the food of a mere Muggle be delicious? Oh my God, this tastes so good, cousin." "It's delicious, just eat more, Draco." Thomas looked at his cousin with a smile, then reached out to take the title deed and property handed over by Kresh and began to look at them. "Kresh, use the name of the Black family to find some reliable people to take over these industries." "Oh, yes, Master Thomas." After receiving Thomas's order, Kresh bowed respectfully to Thomas and then left the room. "Okay, Draco, get ready, we should get ready to go." "Ugh. Rough hair. Where to go?" Draco asked with a puzzled look while chewing the chocolate cake in his mouth. "The Muggle world, Draco." "The Muggle world, what's so?" "Draco, before you set off, didn't your uncle tell you anything?" "Listen to my cousin." "That's good, Draco, get up and get ready. By the way, do you want the Muggle weapon I used earlier at Ollivander's? I'm in the Muggle world, there's still a lot of that stuff." "Real?" Draco said with excitement on his face. He still remembered the power of that thing. "Really, you can trust me. After all, we are blood relatives, aren't we, Draco?" In the Muggle world, outside Black Manor, three figures suddenly appeared in the open space. "Whoa!" Draco knelt on the ground with his legs, spitting out vomit. It seemed that at this stage, apparition was still too difficult for him. "Kresh, you can use the invisibility spell, right?" "Yes, Master Thomas, Kresh knows the invisibility charm." "Very good. Next, you will use the invisibility spell and stay beside me. Do not remove the spell without my order." "Yes, Master Thomas, Kresh will follow your orders." Thomas looked at Kresh who was slowly disappearing, and pulled up Draco who was still retching wildly on the ground and walked towards the manor. Soon, the guards of the manor saw Thomas and Draco, and the door opened. "Welcome back, boss." The guards with guns on both sides saluted respectfully and spoke. In response, Thomas simply nodded casually and led Draco further into the manor. "Oh, great, cousin, can these weapons cause the same power as that day?" Draco touched the gun in his hand and spoke excitedly. "Yes, you can take your pick, Draco." While Thomas was speaking, there was a sudden knock on the door. "Boss, is it me, Mike or Lucy?" "Come in." Thomas sat in the main office chair and spoke. Cats as the door of the room opened, two figures walked in one after the other. They first walked to the desk and bowed respectfully. "Boss X2, sit down." "Yes." The two responded, then found a seat and sat down. Draco on the side was also observing the two of them curiously, and Thomas also noticed this. "Let me introduce you to Mike Fair, the black glove of the family, responsible for handling all the shady business." As Thomas's voice fell, one of the men with a fierce look and a long scar on his face stood up, took off his hat and put it on his chest, then nodded to Draco. "The other one is Lucy Wall, the white glove of the family, responsible for the family's legitimate business and some family diplomacy." The man named Lucy adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses, smiled and nodded to Draco. "These two people are Thomas, the civil and military ministers in the Muggle world, but most of the family's activities and businesses are currently handled by the two of them. The other one is my cousin, Draco Malfoy. Draco, whose name was called by Thomas, felt that he could not weaken his momentum, so he pretended to be calm, smiled and nodded. To be honest, Draco was quite scared when Mike first walked in. While Draco was observing the two were also observing Draco. They had been with the boss for 3 years, but this was the first time they had seen the boss's so-called relatives, which made them very curious. Pa. Well, gentlemen, that's the end of the introductions, now let's talk about something else. Thomas clapped his hands and spoke. Lucy. Yes, boss. Mr. Ross handled the matter smoothly and he was very cooperative. We have now taken control of half of Ross Shipping's ship business. And Mr. Ross generously donated half of his ship to add to our family's business. Very good, Lucy. With Mr. Ross's ship, our family's tobacco industry can be officially launched. Times are changing, and we must keep up with the times. The white industry is the foundation of the family in the future. Yes, boss. So, Mike. Boss, the Fierce Dog Gang recently attacked several of our nightclubs. Although we provided timely support, it still caused considerable losses. Chapter 9. The Bulldog Gang? I remember their leader, poor old Walker. He's so old that he can't even take care of his own people. They don't deserve your mercy, boss. It's time to teach those ignorant fools a lesson. Mike said in a ferocious tone, and with his vicious face, Draco was frightened. Yes, Mike. The family has been stable for half a year. We have put away our fangs and claws and are doing legitimate business. Too many people have forgotten how we made our fortune. Go ahead and teach those stupid dogs a lesson. I want to see old Walker in this office tonight. Yes, boss. Mike had a hideous smile on his face, which made him look even more terrifying. By the way, bring my little cousin, Draco. What? Two exclamations, one big and one small, rang out at the same time, and Mike spoke first. Boss, these are my orders, Mike, the orders of the Black family. I command you to return today with my little cousin Draco and that old stupid dog. Yes, boss. Cousin, I can't do that. Draco said in a nervous tone. Following Lucius for a long time had taught him the ability to read people's expressions. His seventh sense told him that tonight's activities would definitely not be a good thing. Thomas did not give Draco's request his usual smile, but spoke seriously. Draco, your uncle gave you to me so that I could train your character. Do you want to bring shame to Malfoy? Also, I will let Klesh follow you, so you won't be in any danger. That's okay. Draco sighed helplessly and then stepped aside. Late at night, at the seaside pier, the headquarters of the Bulldog Gang. Hoo-hoo, drink it, brothers. That's great, it's really great, all this money belongs to us. Long live Boss Walker. Long live Boss Walker. Old Walker sat in the main seat, looking at the people below cheering for him, and a smile appeared on his face. Boss, your idea is absolutely correct. The Black family's brats really don't dare to take any action. Of course, he's just a kid whose hair hasn't even grown out yet, what can he do? Old Walker took a sip of the whiskey in the glass and spoke casually. He already had a plan in mind for the next step. It wouldn't be long before he could replace the brat from the Black family, live in a comfortable manner, drink champagne and enjoy the service of servants. By then, he will be Master Walker. Bang! Just as everyone was celebrating, a huge explosion suddenly sounded, and the sturdy door was instantly blown into pieces. Before anyone could react, countless men in black windbreakers swarmed in. The Thompson submachine gun in his hand continued to spit out flames, devouring the lives of the members of the Bulldog Gang, and screams and wails continued to ring out. Before old Walker could react, he was knocked to the ground by Mike's gun butt. Ah! Ah! Stop howling, old man! You are lucky compared to those damn stupid dogs under you. The boss wants to see you. Draco, who was standing by, was already lying in the corner, vomiting madly. The tragic scene tonight had caused great trauma to his young mind. Black Manor. Thomas looked nonchalantly at Big Walker, who was tied up on the ground, and sighed. To be honest, I actually don't want to touch you at this stage, old Walker. Mr. Black, please forgive me, please forgive me. This operation was really not my idea. It was all because of those idiots below. That's enough, leave him alone, Mike. Yes, boss. Mike nodded, then punched Old Walker in the abdomen. The huge pain made him bend like a shrimp. Don't tell me you're innocent, it makes me angry because it insults my intelligence. You attacked my business, so you should have thought of this. Tooth for tooth, blood for blood. Don't tell me this is your first day out. Take him away and send him on his way, Mike. I don't want to dirty my blanket. It will cost a lot of money. Yes, boss. No, no, please, Lord Black, no. Bang. After a burst of noise, it gradually became quiet outside. Compared to the Black family, which was gradually becoming a legitimate family, the Bulldog gang could be said to be doing all kinds of evil. So it seemed that he had done a good thing. Thomas thought so, then turned to look at Draco beside him. Are you feeling better? Much better, cousin. How does it feel? The real world. Not very well, cousin. Draco hesitated for a moment before answering. The world is just like this. It will never be as beautiful as we imagine. This is true for the Muggle world and the Wizarding world as well. People pursue desires and power, and are eventually devoured by them. Those who cannot control power will eventually be destroyed by power. A better world may come, but not now. After all, where we are is not that great country. Great country? Malfoy asked doubtfully. Yes, in the near future, we will all witness the arrival of this day, a country that truly belongs to magic. Malfoy said he didn't understand, but he was deeply shocked. Only Thomas knew that in his heart there was a seed of ambition taking root and sprouting. By the way, Draco, after what you've seen today, what kind of person do you think I am? Thomas asked curiously. A powerful person. Is that a bad guy? Oh. Thomas looked at Draco's troubled little face, smiled, then reached out and patted Draco on the shoulder. Do you think Mike is a bad guy? Certainly. Draco answered without hesitation. Then I'm his boss, so I'm also a bad guy, right? That's different, cousin. Nothing is different, Draco. I'll tell you one more thing. The Black family, the Black family in the Muggle world, owns 10 orphanages all over the country, taking in poor homeless children, and Mike is the director of the orphanage. So, is he a good man? Draco, there is no good or evil in this world. There is only power in those incompetent people who cannot obtain power. Old Walker attacked me because he thought I was weak, but he failed and I won because I was stronger than him. Do you remember what I told you when we first met, Malfoy? Whether wizard or Muggle, everyone has their own value. In the next few days, I will let Mike take care of you. Don't you want to use guns? I tell you, Michael is a good hand, he would be willing to teach you. You've had a hard day today and you're tired. Go down and have a rest. Think about what I said. Chapter 10. September 1st was a very special day. Thomas closed the magic book in his hand and put it into the ring. Host, Thomas Blake age, 11 talent, leader, get to know the failed art student in the tavern. Firearm skill level 4, you can skillfully use some simple firearms. Learning master, reach the pinnacle of learning ability. Affinity with dark magic, Azkaban welcomes you. You can quickly master dark magic and its power will be doubled when used, while avoiding negative effects. Magic level, level 3, you have surpassed most students. Skills, level 5 soul taking curse, level 3 heart drilling curse, level 3 snake spell. Warehouse, basilisk egg, improved, patio. Bang, bang, bang. Nice shot, Draco. Great aim. You have a talent. Thank you, Mike. Draco put down the Glock in his hand, smiled and said that Mike had taught him a lot during this period of time. It seems like you guys are getting along very well. Boss. Cousin. I really don't want to disturb your happy day, but, Draco, do you remember what day it is today? What day is it? Oh, damn, September 1st, my stuff. Aunt has prepared everything for you, Draco. Mike, I'll be gone for the next few months. If you have any questions, you and Lucy can send me letters through it. As soon as Thomas finished speaking, an owl suddenly flew onto his shoulder. He had commissioned Kriaker to buy this owl specifically to facilitate communication between the two sides. Yes, boss. 9 3/4 station. The Malfoys had already prepared Draco's luggage and were waiting here. When Draco saw his parents whom he hadn't seen for a long time, he immediately rushed over to them. After all, no matter what, he was still a child. Kreaker, I'm going to Hogwarts. Please pay more attention to the industry. If you have any questions, please contact me. Kreaker will follow Master Thomas's orders. Very good, get busy. After making all the arrangements, Thomas, after Kreaker, straightened his clothes and walked towards the Malfoy family. Uncle, Aunt. According to seniority, you should call me Aunt, Thomas. Narcissus smiled and rubbed Thomas's head before speaking. Yes, Aunt. Good boy, if you get into any trouble at school you can write to your uncle, he is the school director. Yes, Thomas, the Malfoys still have a certain amount of power at Hogwarts. Lucius said with a smile. Thomas looked at the Malfoys and their husbands and sighed helplessly. He had to admit that there was a reason why Draco looked like his father in the original book. All right, kids, get inside, the train's about to leave. As Narcissa spoke, she pushed the cart beside her to Draco. The two boarded the train under the watchful eyes of the Malfoys. After a while, the carriage door was opened and two little fat men walked in one after another. Master Draco. X2 Goyle. Crabbe. Draco was also very happy to see the two of them. Thomas naturally recognized the identities of these two men, Malfoy's personal followers. He vaguely remembered that the day after the Malfoy family returned the land deeds, these two families also returned the occupied land deeds. By the way, I haven't introduced him to you yet. This is my cousin. Thomas Black, heir to the Black family. Draco said excitedly. After hearing what Draco said, Goyle and Crabbe immediately stepped forward to pay their respects. Although they were fat, they were not stupid. There were few stupid people in aristocratic families. With Draco's attitude, they soon understood who the boss would be for the next 7 years. In response to their greetings, Thomas waved his hand nonchalantly and continued to stroke Iris in his arms. When the train was halfway through its journey, a salesman passed by and Thomas chose to buy a whole truck of snacks without hesitation. It doesn't matter whether it's money or not, the main thing is to have a sense of novelty. Let's eat together. Really? Can we eat together, Master Thomas? Goyle and Crabbe asked, swallowing madly. Just eat if I tell you to. My cousin has plenty of money. Draco said with disdain before grabbing a chocolate frog and starting to chew on it. Thomas nodded, agreeing with Draco's words, and opened a bag of strange flavored beans. He tasted one and it tasted good, strawberry flavor. Just as the four were enjoying their meal, the train door was suddenly knocked, and a girl with brown hair and a pair of striking front teeth appeared at the door. Excuse me, did you see? Oh my god, Mr. Thomas, you are also on this train, and you are also a freshman at Hogwarts. Yes, Hermione, long time no see. Thomas smiled and nodded. Oh, by the way, Mr. Thomas, I wonder if you have seen a toad. Its name is Lefou. I didn't see it. Maybe you should look ahead, Hermione. Oh, well, by the way, Mr. Thomas, the train seems to be arriving soon, you'd better change your clothes first. Thanks for the reminder. You're welcome, Mr. Thomas. I'll be leaving now. After Hermione left, Draco looked at Thomas curiously. Cousin, do you know the new student just now? Thomas did not deny it and nodded. Yes, when I was changing my teeth before, it was her father, Mr. Granger, who took care of it. Granger? Is there any noble with this surname in the wizarding world? Goyle asked curiously. No, as far as I know, Hermione's parents are both muggles. That's mud. Shut up, Crabbe, I don't want to hear these words. What's wrong with muggles? There are some good people among them. Draco said loudly. Thomas nodded in satisfaction when he saw this scene. It seems that the bond between Mike and Draco has been quite strong during this period. Woo woo woo. With a roar, the train stopped steadily. Students got off the train one after another and gathered on the platform. Thomas. Thomas turned towards the sound and saw Harry waving at him enthusiastically. Thomas smiled and nodded in response. Harry, what were you doing? Ronald asked curiously. I met a friend. Friend? Ronald looked curiously in the direction Harry had greeted earlier, and what came into view was Thomas's group of 4, but what caught his attention most was Draco's platinum hair. Chapter 11. Oh, Harry, although I don't know who your friend is, the person standing next to him is definitely a bad guy. Bad guy? Harry looked at Ronald curiously and asked in confusion. Yes, the boy with platinum blonde hair is from the Malfoy family. It is said that the Malfoy family was loyal to that Voldemort. Oh my god, Harry, we can't mention you know whose name. Ronald said nervously, as if something terrible would happen in the next second. Okay, so what's next? Harry asked curiously. If I'm not mistaken, these guys will most likely go to Slytherin, which is a place full of dark wizards. Your friend who hangs out with them is probably not a good person either. Ronald, I hope you won't slander Thomas behind his back. It's not right. Harry said a little angrily. Well, we'll know when the time comes. Ronald shrugged and said indifferently. All first-year students, gather here. A loud voice suddenly sounded. Oh, look, it's Hagrid. Harry said excitedly. Mind if I join you guys? A soft female voice sounded, and Thomas turned his head curiously. A girl with bright golden hair and a pair of sapphire eyes was looking at them with a smile. Of course, it's our pleasure, miss. Thomas said with a smile. Nice to meet you. My name is Daphne Greengrass. Thomas Blake, nice to meet you. The two exchanged names and paid no attention to the three people watching the show nearby. Children, come on board quickly, the boat is about to set sail. Hagrid's voice, which was as loud as a loudspeaker spell, echoed above everyone, speeding up the process of getting on board. A small boat can accommodate 4 little wizards. Thomas and Daphne were the first to board the boat. Cousin, I'm with you. Draco shook off the hands of Goyle and Crabbe beside him and strode onto the boat where Thomas was. Goyle and Crabbe looked at their position on the ship and thought about their own size, so they gave up the idea of getting on board. As for why students have to take a boat to Hogwarts every year, there are many theories, but the one I prefer is that Hogwarts wants freshmen to walk the same path as the 4 founders, so that they can experience the hardships and expectations for the future. As all the first-year students boarded the boat began to move naturally. A thick fog enveloped the entire lake. The deep lake water was splashed with ripples due to the movement of the boat. People could only see a range of no more than 5 meters with the faint light on the boat. Coupled with the quiet environment, the freshmen became extremely nervous. About 10 minutes later, a huge castle appeared in front of everyone. Here we are, kids. Hagrid said with a smile, striding directly onto the castle's dock. The freshmen, who were already in a state of extreme tension, jumped off the boat and ran towards the platform, as if some monster was chasing them. Hagrid led everyone to a gatehouse and left, leaving behind a group of freshmen with curious faces. Where is Hagrid going? Harry asked curiously. I'm not sure, I think we're going to meet the professor. My brothers told me that the entrance exam is very strict, and we might have to face a giant monster. Ronald said nervously. After hearing what Ronald said, the other little wizards also became panicked and gathered together nervously. Cats! The castle gate slowly opened, instantly attracting everyone's attention. A tall figure in a dark green robe appeared in front of everyone. It was Professor McGonagall. All right, kids, follow me. Everyone followed Professor McGonagall and walked into the door. There were no trolls or scary creatures. Instead there was a bright lobby with 4 long tables and countless candles suspended in the air above the lobby. Sitting at the top are teachers from the college and various disciplines. As soon as he entered the door, Thomas clearly felt a gaze following him. The owner of the site was none other than Dean Dumbledore, who was sitting in the main seat above. Facing the gaze of the most powerful wizard of this era, Thomas did not feel panicked but nodded slightly. Dumbledore, who was sitting at the main seat, also smiled and nodded, then blinked, looking very amiable. Professor McGonagall walked to the front of the stage, and on her other side was a square bench with a hat full of patches on it. The next second, a long crack suddenly appeared on the hat, as if a mouth had opened. Then it began to sing. Welcome, everyone. The sorting ceremony is about to begin. I am the Hogwarts sorting hat. Let me guide you from now on. You may not think I'm pretty. But never judge a book by its cover. If you can find a prettier hat than mine, you might belong in Gryffindor. That's where the brave live. Their courage and boldness and generosity to make Gryffindor outstanding. You may be one of the most loyal Hufflepuffs. The people there are honest and loyal. Hufflepuff students are stoic and honest. Don't be afraid of hard work. If you have a sharp mind, Then the wise Ravenclaw welcomes you. Those who are wise and learned. You'll always meet their peers there. Maybe you'll go into Slytherin. This will make you one of the few. Maybe you'll make some genuine friends here. But those who are cunning and sinister will stop at nothing to achieve their goals. Come and wear me. Don't be afraid. Don't panic. In my hands, your future will be determined. Thomas couldn't help but narrow his eyes slightly when he heard this. It can be said that the biggest black mark of Slytherin, if nothing unexpected happens, is most likely this hat. And everyone around him seemed to have no objection to this. Now, children, stand in a line and I will call your names one by one. Professor McGonagall said loudly. Hannah Abbott. Chapter 12. As Professor McGonagall's voice sounded, freshmen came up to the stage one after another. The sorting hat gave them the names of the houses they would go to. Just like in the book, the three-person team was still assigned to Gryffindor. When it was Harry Potter's turn, the whole hall applauded loudly like thunder, and even the Slytherin students applauded enthusiastically. It has to be said that the influence of the title of Savior is still very convincing among these little wizards. Thomas Blake. When Professor McGonagall called out his name, many professors on the stage also turned their attention to him. It has to be said that the Black family is also full of controversies, but basically the bad side accounts for the majority. As one of the 28 holy pureblood clans, it has now ended up with a declining clan. Of the only 3 remaining members, one has married Malfoy, and the remaining 2 are still in Azkaban. Snape was also looking at Thomas below with curiosity. If nothing unexpected happened, Thomas would most likely be sorted into Slytherin. After all, this is also a fine tradition of pureblood families, with the exception of Sirius. There were also quite a few students at the Slytherin table, looking at Thomas, the heir of the Black family, with burning eyes. When they returned to school, many family elders told them to befriend the heirs. After all, several families headed by Malfoy had already returned the Black family's assets one after another. No one can say what it means specifically, but it is always a good idea to extend a friendly olive branch in advance. It is always better to have one more friend than one more enemy, especially when this enemy is a member of the sacred 28 families. When Thomas put on the sorting hat, a subtle voice sounded in Thomas's mind. Oh, what an interesting child, I can't even read your inner thoughts. Thomas under the hat felt it was normal. After all, it was produced by the system, and the quality was definitely guaranteed. Black, another black. If it were normal assignment, you would go to Slytherin, but there are exceptions, such as... No need to choose, I'm going to Slytherin. Oh, are you sure, young wizard? I'm sure. Really? Okay then, I get it. Slytherin. Ah! When the sorting hat finished its announcement, there was deafening cheers and applause at the Slytherin table. The most enthusiastic ones were the little wizards led by Malfoy, whose hands were so red from clapping. Snape nodded in approval. After all, Thomas was a pure blood, so it was perfectly legitimate for him to go to Slytherin. Dumbledore then stood up and smiled. Welcome. Welcome everyone to Hogwarts to start the new school year. Before the banquet begins, I would like to say a few words. They are, idiot. Crybaby. Scum. Twist. See, Harry, I told you long ago that this guy must be no good, and he went to Slytherin. Ronald took a bite of the chicken leg and said indignantly. Harry frowned slightly and was about to speak when a female voice sounded first. Didn't your parents teach you that it is very rude to say bad things about others behind their backs? The two came to their senses and looked towards the source of the voice. It was a little girl with messy hair. Before they could ask any questions, the little girl started talking. My name is Hermione Granger. At this moment, Harry seemed to have reached some kind of consensus with Hermione. My name is Harry Potter, and I also think that speaking ill of others behind their backs is not a good thing. Afterwards, the two of them chatted together. After all, they were from the same Muggle world and were of similar age, so they had many topics to talk about. Ronald, who was standing by, frowned slightly when he saw this scene, but soon he turned his anger and grief into appetite and started eating the delicacies on the table with big mouthfuls. Come on, Thomas, I've saved a seat for you. Daphne said with a smile, and Malfoy beside her hurriedly spoke up. Cousin, here. I've saved a spot for you here. In front of his brothers and the beauty, Thomas finally chose to sit next to Daphne. Seeing this, Daphne smiled victoriously and thoughtfully poured pumpkin juice for Thomas. Mafia stood there in a daze as if he was petrified. Then he quickly picked up the pumpkin juice on the table and drank it all. While drinking, he said, "It was obviously me who came here first." Of course, Thomas's reason for choosing Daphne wasn't some superficial woman over brother thing, but now that Lucius had extended an olive branch to him, he had firmly accepted it. But one ally alone is not that reliable, so he needs new helpers, and Greengrass, who is also one of the 28 holy purebloods, is a good choice. At the dinner, many Slytherin seniors chose to greet the future pureblood family head, just to make themselves familiar with him. Malfoy, who was standing by, was very envious and hoped that he could be like that one day. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully joining Slytherin College. The current college recognition rate is 12%. Thomas was stunned when he saw the progress bar on the panel, then he smiled and shook his head. He has always known that fame is only part of gaining recognition, and strength is the best proof anywhere. After the dinner, everyone was led to the common room by their respective prefects, which disappointed Harry, who had been wanting to approach and chat with them. Thomas obviously noticed this as well, and turned to Harry with a smile and nodded. "Congratulations on joining Slytherin House. I am your prefect, Gemma Mary. Everyone has seen that the medal on their wizard robes is a giant snake, and the giant snake is a very intelligent creature. The colors of our school are silver and emerald, and the entrance to the common room is in the basement. You can look through the window glass and see the scene at the bottom of the Hogwarts lake. Please don't panic if you see a giant octopus or a fishman. The glass is all set with strengthening magic, it is very solid. In addition, the gate password is updated every week, so everyone should remember this carefully. This week's password is Pure Blood." As Gemma's voice fell, the dark green door slowly opened, and everyone saw the full picture inside. It was exactly the same as Gemma's previous introduction, making Thomas feel like he was in an aquarium. The dormitory allocation of the college is 4 people per room. Your previous luggage has been delivered to your dormitory. Now I will arrange the dormitory personnel. Chapter 13. Without any surprise, Thomas and Malfoy were assigned together with the 2 personal followers, Goyle and Crabbe. Thomas was quite satisfied with this. This way, if he went out at night, he would have a good cover. After all, most of the time, it was always necessary to be with his own people to make things easier. Malfoy looked up and gave Daphne his standard young master smile. "Humph, woman, no matter how attentive you are, it will be useless. In the end, my cousin will still have to live with me." In response to Malfoy's provocation, Daphne rolled her eyes beautifully. The 4 of them entered the dormitory and looked around curiously. After walking through a long and narrow corridor, a wide space came into everyone's sight. The walls and floors of the dormitory are made of rough stones, and round hanging lamps emitting green light are tied to long chains and hang from the sky. Inside the dormitory, there are 4 ancient-style 4-poster beds, hung with green silk curtains painted with the adventures of the founder of Slytherin. The bed is covered with sheets embroidered with silver thread, which makes it look more elegant. Goyle and Crabbe stood respectfully behind Thomas and Malfoy, waiting for them to choose their beds. Thomas was not surprised at all. After all, a henchman should have the awareness of being a henchman, which is a good thing. At night, the 3 Malfoys had fallen into a sweet dream. Thomas leaned on the bed, stroking Iris's soft hair while thinking about the next step. He was not in a hurry for the system task for the time being. 7 years was a long time and everything had just begun. He had plenty of time. What he needed to do now was to find Snape's book in the senior classroom. Putting aside the contents inside, the 2 exclusive spells recorded in it, namely, Invisible Sharpness and Hanging Bell, really made him excited. In order to better prepare for the upcoming night tour, he had already done all the work in advance, such as the Disillusionment Charm, which he had already mastered to the 4th level. However, this is far from enough. In order to make the night tour plan complete, he needs a more important prop. The next day, in the Transfiguration Magic classroom. "By the way, cousin, are we here too early? Is there no one here?" Malfoy said as he looked at the empty classroom. "No, we arrived just in time," Thomas said softly, then walked straight to the podium and bowed respectfully to the tabby cat on the stage. "Master, why do you think Master Black would bow to a cat?" "Yes, Master, why is that?" Goyle and Crabbe asked in great confusion. After hearing their questions, Malfoy frowned and scolded. You two idiots, my cousin must have his own reasons for doing this. We will go over and bow as well. Oh, oh. Although Goyle and Crabbe did not understand what Malfoy meant, they were forced to follow Malfoy's footsteps and walked to the podium and bowed slightly. The four of them found a place to sit down and began to organize the materials needed for this class. Cousin, I still don't understand why we have to bow to a cat. Malfoy said quietly. Faced with Malfoy's doubts, Thomas just smiled and shook his head, saying lightly. So do you remember what our lesson is today? Transfiguration, oh. Malfoy covered his mouth in surprise, and quickly glanced at the tabby cat on the podium. At this moment, he understood. Soon, other little wizards came to the classroom one after another. It was not until the bell rang that Harry and Ronald hurried into the classroom. Ronald first took a breath, and then immediately observed the classroom environment. Apart from the students, there was only the tabby cat on the podium. Phew, Harry, great, Professor McGonagall isn't here yet. Ronald said with a smile, and Harry nodded, breathing a sigh of relief. Hat, that Weasley is going to be in trouble. Malfoy spoke sarcastically with a look of disdain. Just as Goyle and Crabbe looked puzzled, a magical scene appeared. The tabby cat on the podium suddenly jumped down and transformed into a middle-aged witch in a green robe. It was none other than Professor McGonagall. At this moment, Goyle and Crabbe's respect for Thomas and Malfoy instantly reached a peak. Malfoy also naturally raised his proud head. But Harry and his friend were not so lucky. The two people who were smiling before suddenly became stiff in expression. No. No way, so unlucky. Ronald whispered. So, Mr. Potter and Mr. Weasley, can you explain to me what is going on? Professor McGonagall said in a serious tone that it was only the first day and his two little lions were late. In comparison, Thomas and the other three arrived in the classroom early in the morning, feeling like other people's children. It's because, we are not familiar with the road. Yes, we are not familiar with the road. Very well, then please don't be late again next time, Mr. Potter, Mr. Weasley, or I will turn one of you into a map or an alarm clock. As Harry and the other boy took their seats, the class began. This class opened the eyes of many young wizards present. Well, kids, what you have to do next is to turn the matches in front of you into silver needles. Just when most of the little wizards were staring at the matches in front of them, at a loss, Professor McGonagall's voice suddenly rang out. Very good, our Mr. Black was the first to complete this magic, the quality is very good, Slytherin, 5 points. Thank you for the compliment, Professor. Thomas said with a smile. You did a great job, Mr. Black. Professor McGonagall also smiled and nodded, feeling a little sorry that such a good child was not assigned to Gryffindor. As the next bell rang, Daphne immediately trotted to Thomas's side and gave Malfoy and the other two a vicious look. In response, Malfoy expressed his innocence. Just as he was about to argue, Thomas spoke. Draco, I have something for you to do. Outside the Gryffindor common room, 3 unexpected people appeared here at this moment. So, what does the young master of the Malfoy family want from us? This is Gryffindor. Your methods in Slytherin won't work here. 2 red-haired boys who looked exactly the same spoke one after another. Chapter 14. In an abandoned utility room at Hogwarts. Cousin, someone is coming. Well done, thank you for your hard work, Draco. Thomas said with a smile, then turned to look at the Weasley twins in front of him. Let me introduce myself. My name is Thomas Blake. I'm here with you today because I have a good business deal and I want to cooperate with you. Fred and George looked at each other and then spoke. Master Black, if you are talking about business, then we can tell you that you have indeed found the right person. We provide all kinds of funny props here, and they are inexpensive and of good quality. We also accept all kinds of commissions. As long as the money is in place, even if you want a sweet butter beer, we can easily get it for you. Thomas nodded in approval. Although the Weasley twins were mischievous, you couldn't deny that they were really capable. While everyone was studying peacefully, they had already started their own business. After graduation, he even had his own business in Diagon Alley, which is something most young wizards cannot do. Then let's talk about business. You may not know that I come from the Muggle world, and in the Muggle world there is a method of increasing the value of an industry called investment. So you're going to invest in us? Then your vision is absolutely correct. Fred and George said excitedly that although they liked to play tricks, it was also to establish their reputation at Hogwarts so as to attract more business and earn capital. The goal is to own a magic props store of my own after graduation. As you know, I have just taken over the family business not long ago, but I am the heir of the Black family after all. I can say without exaggeration that the thing I lack the least now is money. But no matter how much money you have, there will always be a time when you squander it all, right? So, I plan to invest in you. I can open a store to sell the tools you research, and provide you with 50% of the commission from tool sales every month. If the results are good, I can transfer the ownership of the store to you after you graduate, but the commission I receive for each item sold will remain the same. How about that? After hearing what Thomas said, the two fell into deep thought. They originally thought that Thomas had called them over just to buy some props or smuggle some butterbeer, but they didn't expect it to be so big. However, this suggestion did make them very excited. As Diagon Alley was a trading place for British wizards, it was no exaggeration to say that every inch of land in the store was worth a lot of money. As long as they agreed to Thomas's words, their products would be sold directly to the entire British wizarding community. As the audience becomes wider, the money earned will naturally increase, but... Fred looked up at Thomas and spoke. Your conditions are very favorable, Master Thomas, but how can you say that the effect you mentioned is good and cost-effective? Yes, Master Thomas, we two brothers can't work so hard to sell you things, and then you say they are not up to standard, then we will lose a lot of money. George also responded. Of course not, you can rest assured about that. Thomas smiled and nodded, then he took out a magic contract from his ring and handed it to the two of them. On it were the conditions he had previously drawn up in the old house. Look, since it's an investment, I won't cheat you. Fred and George took the magic contract and looked at it. After a moment, they showed happy expressions on their faces. It can be seen that the conditions in the contract are very much in line with their wishes. Naturally, Thomas noticed this expression. We agree, Master Thomas, and we hope for a pleasant cooperation. The three of them signed their names on the magic contract together. The next second, a bright blue light appeared on the magic contract, proving that the contract was officially established. Thomas smiled and nodded, then put the contract back into the ring, took out a small bag and handed it to the two of them, then spoke. This bag has been cast with traceless magic, and the space ratio inside is 100%. Consider it a welcome gift from me to you. George was about to reach out, but was stopped by Fred. We cannot accept this bag, Master Thomas. It is too valuable. It's okay, it's just a little thing. It's just a small help from me as an investor. As for the production of props, you can hand it over to Draco directly after you are done. The profit sharing will be once a month. You can just come to me directly. After listening to Thomas's words, Fred finally nodded and accepted the storage bag. Seeing that the cooperation was reached, Thomas went straight to the point. By the way, I heard that you have a Marauder's map that shows the names of all the people in Hogwarts. I wonder if it's true. George and Fred looked at each other and instantly understood something. Master Thomas, I didn't expect that we are actually kindred spirits. Indeed, this night tour is very enjoyable. Compared to the excited Weasley twins, Goyle and Crabbe were horrified. This night out was against school rules. Malfoy also noticed this, turned around and looked at the two of them and said viciously. If anyone doesn't keep their mouth shut about what happened today, I will definitely write a letter to my father. When the two heard what Malfoy said, they were instantly frightened. As their two families were vassals of the Malfoy family, if Malfoy told his father, it meant that if they let something slip, they would inevitably be cooked with fried pork and bamboo shoots. The two of them nodded frantically to ensure the safety of today's conversation. Thomas's conversation was coming to an end, and Fred had already handed the Marauder's map to Thomas. In order to better take over the store after graduation, the two brothers need to invest more energy in product research and development and design. This can be regarded as a kind of reciprocity. Thomas looked at the mark on the map. There were 4 names written in the upper right corner, Prongs, Padfoot, Moony, and Wormtail, corresponding to the 4 creators of the map. I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. As Thomas's voice fell, names began to appear on the map one by one. George and Fred were also surprised because they had not yet told Thomas the password of the map. But before they could finish being surprised, Thomas's voice rang out again. The prank is over. The name on the map disappeared instantly, and Thomas quickly closed the map and put it into the ring. Then, Happy cooperation. Chapter 15. At night, all the little wizards have fallen into sweet dreams, and Thomas put on his robe and prepared to start an interesting adventure. Cousin, are you going out? Thomas turned his head to look at the source of the sound, and saw Malfoy poking his hands excitedly. It was not difficult to see that he was also very interested in night tours. Thomas nodded and spoke. That's right, Draco, but I'm terribly sorry I can't take you with me this time. As Thomas finished speaking, he could clearly see Draco's expression drop. Thomas stepped forward, patted Malfoy on the shoulder, and spoke to comfort him. But, Draco, you don't have to be discouraged. I have a book on the explanation of the disillusionment charm. As long as you can learn and use this spell proficiently, I will take you with me on the next night tour. Really? Cousin? Malfoy's face wiped away the previous decadence and he spoke excitedly. Of course, we are blood relatives, Draco. Thomas nodded, then took out a small notebook from his ring and handed it to Malfoy. A moment later, after comforting Malfoy, Thomas appeared in the Slytherin common room. Disillusionment as the magic wand glowed, Thomas's figure became transparent until it completely disappeared. After doing all this, Thomas also took out the Marauder's map. I solemnly declare that I am up to no good. The names on the map started to expand, and at the same time, Thomas discovered that the names of Harry and the other two also appeared on the periphery. Because of Thomas, Malfoy did not provoke Harry or challenge him to a fight, but the three little ones still went on a night stroll. Thomas had no idea why, and he had no interest in it. Because he has more important things to do now. Thomas avoided everyone along the way, including the patrolling professor, and ran straight to a tapestry on the 8th floor. The tapestry depicts a giant beating the fool Barnabas with a club. This should be the place. Thomas then stood on the tapestry, turned left 3 times, and then turned right 3 times, while muttering to himself. I need a place to practice my spells. The next second, a snow-white door appeared in front of Thomas. As the door opened, a magic practice room came into Thomas's sight. So, the happy time of leveling up began again. This process lasted for more than half an hour, and it only stopped when the magic power in Thomas's body was almost exhausted. With the disillusionment charm still in place, Thomas left the room of requirement. On the way downstairs, I encountered 3 panicked little ones. Harry, here. Who? Did you hear someone talking just now? Harry said with horror on his face, and Ronald and Hermione beside him couldn't help but become nervous. They had just escaped from the 3-headed dog, now they were about to encounter a ghost. No, it seems that encountering ghosts is a very normal thing in Hogwarts. Before Harry could continue his thoughts, the voice continued. Harry, it's me, Thomas. Thomas, why are you here? Harry looked around the empty room in surprise and swallowed. Don't be nervous, I used the disillusionment charm, so you can't see me. Oh my god, Mr. Thomas, have you already learned the disillusionment charm? I've seen this spell in a book. It's a very complicated spell. Hermione said excitedly. After knowing that the person coming was Thomas, her previous nervousness was relieved by a large margin. When Harry heard Hermione say this, admiration appeared in his eyes. Only Ronald curled his lips in disdain. Thomas glanced at the Marauder's map in his hand and saw the names of Argus Fitch and Mrs. Lawless approaching, so he couldn't help but interrupt. Okay, everyone, the time for small talk is over. The administrator is about to arrive. We have to leave here first. Harry and Hermione were ready to leave immediately after hearing what Thomas said, but Ronald was about to complain with a look of disdain on his face. Suddenly a loud cat's meow was heard. It was Mrs. Loresa's voice. Ah ha ha ha, is this the place, dear? I can feel the aura of the little wizards. I can't wait to catch them and torture them. It's a pity that Professor Dumbledore changed a lot of treaties, otherwise my tools would definitely be able to teach these little bastards a lesson. Ronald couldn't help swallowing when listening to the hoarse and terrifying voice. Then he looked at his side and found that Harry and Hermione were gone. Damn, how can you run so fast? Before Ronald could complain, a cold hand patted his shoulder. As soon as Ronald turned his head mechanically, a terrifying old face appeared in front of him. Hello, little wizard. Ah! Harry and Hermione couldn't help but feel sorry for the screams coming from the room behind them, but they undoubtedly sped up their movements. Thomas, is Ronald okay? Harry asked worriedly. No, although Argus Filch's tone was a little scary, he is the caretaker of Hogwarts after all. If he hurt the little wizard, Dumbledore would not keep him in the castle. So, Ronald shouldn't be a problem. He will most likely be handed over to the professor on patrol, though. But what? Harry asked curiously. Hermione on the side rolled her eyes and answered the question for Thomas. Before you set off, I told you that night tours are against school rules. So Ronald will be fired. Harry said nervously, even though Ronald wasn't very smart sometimes, he was Harry's roommate and good friend after all, and he didn't want Ronald to be expelled. Don't worry, Harry, Ronald will be fine. At most he will be deducted points. Deduction of points. Well, about 50 points. Ronald won't be expelled, you can rest assured about that. Soon the three of them were chatting and came to a fork in the road. See you tomorrow, then, both of you. See you tomorrow. X2 The three of them said good night to each other and prepared to go back to sleep peacefully. The world was completed with Ronald being the only one hurt. Chapter 16. It was still a very ordinary day until the Gryffindors saw the points hourglass representing Gryffindor in the cafeteria. The next second, the little lions were instantly excited. The little snakes on the side naturally would not miss the opportunity to make fun of the little lions. This made the little lions very angry, and some of the ones with bad tempers even pulled out their magic wands. The little snakes naturally refused to give in, and the tense atmosphere was not suppressed until Professor McGonagall and Snape showed up. The little lions immediately gathered around Professor McGonagall to ask the reason, but the answer they got was ambiguous. Harry and Hermione looked at Ronald, who was still in shock, with awkward expressions. It was not difficult to see that the brief time he spent with Argus Filch last night had left him with a considerable psychological trauma. But the two of them didn't know what to say. Although Ronald was the only one arrested last night, after all, the three of them went out for the night tour together. Adhering to the principle of friendship first, the two of them kept comforting Ronald. In the afternoon potions class, Harry came to the classroom early and prepared the teaching materials. After all, although the points deducted from Gryffindor were not due to him, it still had a certain impact. So he planned to study hard and work hard with Hermione to earn back the lost 50 points. Daphne also squeezed Malfoy away early in the morning and sat next to Thomas. With a bang, the door of the potions classroom was suddenly opened, and a middle-aged man with greasy long hair walked into the classroom, waving his black robe that looked like bat wings. This class doesn't require you to wave your wand foolishly, nor does it require you to recite spells blindly. But I can teach you something more tempting. I can teach you how to confuse your mind and confuse your senses. I will teach you how to win fame and build glory. I can even teach you how to achieve immortality. Harry kept waving the brush in his hand, quickly writing down the words Snape had said earlier on the paper, trying to be a good and obedient student. But it was not difficult for Thomas to see from Snape's eyes that the confrontation had begun. Sure enough, the next second, Snape took the lead in launching an attack. Snape, who was originally speaking at the podium, suddenly changed the subject and looked at Harry, his eyes expressing his disgust without disguising. Then he spoke in a sarcastic tone. Perhaps some of you here have gained considerable fame upon arriving at Hogwarts and therefore think that you do not need to attend my classes. Really, Mr. Potter? Our generation of celebrities. Tell me, what would happen if we added powdered narcissus root to the wormwood solution? When Harry heard this question, a big question mark appeared in his head. Hermione on the side raised her hands high, expecting Snape to call on her to answer questions. The teacher could tell who was a good student and who was a bad student at a glance. So, Hermione applied to join the confrontation. Snape has rejected Hermione's application. Mr. Potter, if I wanted to find a Bezoar, do you know where I could find one? I don't know. Harry replied weakly. Oh, really? Then one last question, Mr. Potter, what is the difference between Aconitum natans and Aconitum lunulatum? I don't know, Professor. Oh, that's a shame, Mr. Potter, it seems that fame isn't everything. Well, Mr. Black, I believe that with your knowledge, you should be able to tell Mr. Potter the answers to these 3 questions. Thomas was stunned when he heard Snape's voice, then he immediately realized that Potter and Black were the 2 main forces of bullying. Well, justice may be late, but it will never be absent. Although Thomas had no relationship with Sirius, that didn't stop Snape from causing trouble for himself. Fortunately, Thomas had a clear memory of the 3 major questions in this major. Of course, no problem, Professor. Thomas adjusted his wizard robes and stood up. The answer to the first question is the water of life and death, also known as the potion of living hell. The second question is that fecal stones can be obtained from the stomach of goats, which has a strong detoxification effect. As for the answer to the last question, there is no difference between Aconitum natans and Aconitum lunulatum. Both can be called Aconitum. Snape was also stunned when he heard what Thomas said, and then nodded with satisfaction. 5 points for Slytherin. The next second after he finished speaking, Snape turned his head sharply, looked at Harry again and spoke. So, Mr. Potter, why don't you write these down? Do you think you won't be able to use them, or does your troll-like brain think you are smart enough? Of course, there are you too. Soon the whole classroom was filled with the sound of recording. Throughout the entire class, Thomas could clearly notice that Snape's eyes were on Harry for more than half of the time, or rather, on Harry's emerald eyes. This reminded Thomas of a joke in his previous life, when someone swapped the roles of Snape and James Potter. James Potter stood on the podium and stared at the greasy-haired Harry fiercely and said viciously, "Harry, you have your mother's emerald green eyes and your father's damned slicked-back hair." Thomas tried hard to suppress the smile that was about to rise on the corners of his mouth, and his body began to tremble unnaturally. It was mainly because the naked picture made people want to laugh out loud even if they just imagined it. Daphne looked at Thomas worriedly, and asked considerately in a low voice if he felt unwell. This made Thomas stunned. He couldn't tell Daphne about Harry's theory about the greasy hair. Ding-ling-ling. A crisp bell rang for the end of Get Out of Class, helping Thomas relieve the unnecessary embarrassment. Just as Thomas was about to get up, a voice called him. "Mr. Black, does my class bore you so much?" "No, Professor." "Really? Then you really like my class." Thomas frowned slightly, not understanding for a moment what Snape was planning to do. Harry and others also saw this scene, and couldn't help but worry about Thomas. "Yes, Professor." Thomas spoke up because he had no other answer but this one. He still had 7 years of life ahead of him and he couldn't afford to offend the dean of his own house right from the start. "Very good, Mr. Black, report to my office every afternoon for 2 hours. Believe me, you don't want to know what it feels like to be late." Chapter 17. After saying the last sentence, Snape stood up, waving his large black robe and left the classroom. As Snape left, Harry, Malfoy and others quickly gathered around Thomas. Words of comfort continued to ring around Thomas, and Malfoy even said that he would write to his father and ask Snape to cancel this reward. In response, Thomas comforted everyone that there was no problem and that perhaps Snape was planning to give him some special treatment. After a brief exchange, everyone went to the cafeteria together. Because of Thomas, Malfoy and Harry were able to talk a lot, and it was not as awkward as in the original book. But in the eyes of outsiders, this team is not so normal, even a little weird. 5 Slytherins and 2 Gryffindors mixed together looked abnormal no matter how you looked at it. In the cafeteria, due to table issues, Harry and Hermione could only say goodbye to Thomas and the others reluctantly and head to the Gryffindor table. Before the two of them sat down, a sarcastic voice suddenly rang out. "Oh, aren't these our Mr. Savior and Miss Know-It-All? Why don't they eat at the Slytherin table, but come all the way to Gryffindor? Ronald, you're going too far. We are Gryffindors, so why can't we eat at the Gryffindor table?" Hermione said unhappily. Harry's brows also furrowed slightly. After spending some time together, he realized that not all Slytherins were bad people as Ronald said. He also liked the feeling of being friends with Malfoy and the others. There were even several times when he wanted to invite Ronald to play with them, but Ronald refused every time. Watching the scene of Hermione and Ronald quarreling, Harry was suddenly a little confused. He still remembered that the Sorting Hat recommended him to Slytherin. It was only because of my own stubbornness that I chose Gryffindor, so did I really make the wrong choice? On the other side, several senior Slytherin students suddenly came up to Thomas who was having dinner. These were the few people who had shown kindness to him at the beginning of the school year. "Mr. Black, what you want?" One of the boys with long black hair spoke up, taking out a book with a worn cover from his large wizard robe. Thomas put down the spoon, then turned around, took the book, and opened the first page. Thomas's eyes were suddenly struck by the words, "This book beloves the Half-Blood Prince." Thomas then raised his head, stared into the eyes of several people, muttered a few characters softly, and then asked. "You haven't opened it yet?" "No. No, as you instructed, Mr. Black, we came to you as soon as we found the book. The senior student who spoke first said nervously. He didn't know why, but he always felt uneasy, especially when being stared at by Thomas's dark eyes. The others also nodded. After a moment, Thomas nodded with satisfaction, then told Malfoy to hand a small bag to the senior with long black hair. The senior took the small bag handed over by Malfoy, weighed the bag, and then a satisfied smile appeared on his face. Thank you for your generosity, Mr. Black. No, senior, this is what you deserve, isn't it? Thomas smiled and nodded, then put the book into the bag beside him and continued to enjoy his lunch. After the sound of an owl hooting, more and more owls carrying letters and items flew into the cafeteria. Oh my goodness, cousin, Uncle Mike asked me to go hunting next time. Malfoy said excitedly while opening the gift Mike gave him. It would have been fine if Thomas didn't look at it, but when he did, he was shocked and immediately stopped Malfoy from opening the gift. He also asked Malfoy to promise that he would never take this thing out in Hogwarts before he would give up. There was no other reason, just from the exposed handle of the gift, Thomas could infer that it was a double-barreled shotgun. In the dormitory, Thomas stroked Iris in his arms while reading the letters between Lucy and Creaker. There was nothing big in them, it was more like they were just chatting about family matters. Afternoon flying lessons. Every little wizard looked at his own flying broom on the ground with great interest. Miss Hooch, who had short silver hair and was dressed quite heroically, glanced at everyone in front of her and then spoke. Stretch out your right hand, place it on the broom, and then speak. Stand up. Call. Thomas looked at the broom in his hand with surprise and smiled. To be honest, flying has always been a desire engraved in human DNA, and Thomas is no exception. With the success of Malfoy and Harry, as if setting a precedent, more and more people successfully grasped the broom. Miss Hooch also watched this scene with great satisfaction. Then, she picked up the whistle hanging around her neck and spoke. Next, students, sit on your broomsticks. As soon as you hear the whistle in my hand, push your feet hard against the ground. Listen to me, 3-2 Before Miss Hooch could finish her words, a scream was heard and Ace Pilot Neville took off first. Oh no, kid, come back quickly, kid. Madame Hooch shouted anxiously, but unfortunately she only saw Neville's body getting taller and taller. The next second, Malfoy and Harry looked at each other, as if they had made a decision, and they flew out quickly on their broomsticks. When Miss Hooch saw this scene, she couldn't help but feel her eyes blank. It was not enough that there was one worry, but there were actually two. Thomas. X2 Hermione and Daphne stood on Thomas's left and right and spoke anxiously. Don't worry, they won't have any problems. Although Thomas said this, his right hand in his wide wizard robe had already tightly grasped the magic wand, ready to use magic at any time. High in the sky, Malfoy and Harry were seen flying quickly towards the out-of-control Neville, one on the left and one on the right. Haha, I caught it first, Potter. Malfoy was the first to grab Neville's robe by the right shoulder and laughed, but unfortunately the laughter did not last even a second. Damn, why is this guy so heavy? Malfoy, hold on. Harry quickly grabbed Neville's left shoulder and the two of them held Neville steady in the air, one on each side. As for the broom, it had already fallen to the ground and shattered into pieces. Good job, Potter. You too, Malfoy. Neville? Am I also part of your play? Just when sparks of passion were about to fly between their eyes, Neville spoke. Can you please take me as your own? Well, don't worry, we will get you down, Neville. Yes, to be honest, you really should lose weight. I support Malfoy on this one. Ah. Chapter 18. Following a scream from Neville, the poor child fainted again, while Malfoy and Harry took Neville on the left and right and flew slowly downwards. When the little wizards saw this scene, they cheered and applauded. Harry and Malfoy smiled proudly when they saw this scene, but unfortunately they underestimated Neville's weight. Just as Malfoy was about to raise his signature smile, his hand slipped, and Harry was also carried away from the broom by Neville's inertia, and the situation suddenly changed. Ah! After the people below saw this scene, their hearts, which had been relieved, became anxious again. Wingardium Leviosa. Thomas drew out his wand instantly and cast a levitation spell on the two of them. Harry and Neville, who were originally falling rapidly, suddenly stopped in the air and then slowly descended. Miss Hooch, who was standing by, felt as if she was on a roller coaster. It was extremely thrilling. Fortunately, nothing happened to the students. Thanks. Miss Hooch looked at Thomas, who was casting a spell, and thanked him. "You're welcome, Professor. This is what I should do." Miss Hooch looked at the polite Thomas and nodded with satisfaction, then spoke loudly. 5 points for Slytherin. After hearing these words, everyone in Slytherin burst into warm applause and cheers again. The little lions on the side also clapped their hands, not sparing their applause at all. At the window of a high tower, Professor McGonagall watched this scene with satisfaction, and then he couldn't help feeling regretful that Thomas didn't come to Gryffindor when he was sorted. Malfoy, who had just gotten off his broom, ran to Harry's side and checked to see if Harry was injured. "I'm sorry, Potter, It's okay, Malfoy, it's not your fault, it was just an accident." Harry spoke softly and soothingly. When Ronald, who was standing by, saw this scene, his brows furrowed suddenly, and his face looked like he was wearing a mask of pain. A strange triangle relationship formed in Thomas's eyes. The following flight lessons went smoothly under the arrangement of Ms. Hooch, and everyone was generally satisfied. When the bell rang for the end of Get Out of Class, Thomas declined everyone's enthusiastic invitation and walked towards an office alone. Thomas stopped at the door of the office, stretched out his hand, and knocked gently on the door a few times. "Dean Snape, are you there? Come in." Snape's voice sounded coldly. Thomas sighed helplessly in his heart, then pushed the door open and walked in. The next thing he saw was Snape standing by the cauldron, brewing potion. "Humph, it seems that Mr. Black is different from some trolls and knows the benefits of being on time. Go and take care of the toad in that cage," Snape said as he pointed to the huge black jar next to him. Although Thomas was extremely reluctant, he was forced to open the lid of the jar. Crowded with toads, Thomas's hair stood on end when he saw them. "Dean Snape, do we need to deal with all of these?" Snape also heard the reluctance in Thomas's tone, and the corners of his mouth raised slightly. "Unwilling, right? Very good, this is exactly the effect he wanted. Why, Mr. Black is unwilling. Before Thomas could finish his words, Snape continued. "And do you know the role of toads in potions? Its blood and secretions can be used to make antidote potions. The eyes can be used to make love potions, the skin can be mixed with white essence to make a plaster, and the bones can be dried and ground into powder to be added to other potions." "Very good, 5 points for Slytherin. Mr. Black, your answer is correct, so I now order you as the dean to deal with these toads. Well, can you use magic? What do you think, Mr. Black?" At this point, Thomas had no choice but to reluctantly put on the dragon skin gloves, suppress his nausea, grab a toad, and begin the decomposition process. But would Snape really let Thomas go so easily? That was totally wrong, the real torture had just begun. If dissecting a toad is just physical torture, then the next thing is mental oppression. As soon as Thomas made his move, the old bat began to spray poison directly. "My goodness, do you know how to use a knife, Mr. Black? With all due respect, an octopus can use its tentacles more skillfully than you do. Are you going to scratch its eyeballs out? I told you to be careful, understand? Oh my god, stop now. Don't forget what I told you before. I really doubt whether you are a giant monster in human skin. You can't even do such a simple thing. Is that what's written in the book? So Mr. Black, you will never achieve anything great. Most of the teaching materials in the book are wrong. Only constant practice can reveal the truth. Idiot, you." The old bat's roar continued to echo in the office for 2 hours without interruption. Sometimes Thomas really envied Snape's voice. He hardly stopped cursing during the 2 hours. "Don't forget this time tomorrow, Mr. Black." "Yes, Dean." Thomas nodded, then left the office expressionlessly. To be honest, Snape's words were indeed harsh, but he could not refute the fact that Snape was right. Therefore, we can only selectively filter out the venom and listen to the correct opinions. Snape, who was watching Thomas leave, took out a bottle of potion from his arms and poured it into his mouth. To be honest, after scolding for 2 hours, he was a little tired. Feeling the coolness in his throat, Snape moaned in comfort. Today was a good day for him, as he met Lily's eyes and angrily scolded Potter and Black. But having said that, Snape turned his head again to look at the processed toad materials on the side, and a look of satisfaction flashed across his face. "Humph, it's okay, just about at the level of my 8-year-old self." Chapter 19. Thomas sat in the Slytherin lounge with a sullen face. Malfoy and others beside him didn't even dare to breathe, for fear of touching Thomas's brow. Thomas Black is the heir of the Black family, one of the 28 sacred families in the British wizarding world and the leader of the Black family, the mafia in the Muggle world. Could it be that Thomas would surrender so easily? The answer is no, and a grand revenge plan forms in his mind. Don't you, Snape, like Lily? Then, as an outstanding student of Slytherin, it's not too much for me to help the Dean realize his dream. A cold laugh was heard and everyone felt their hair stand on end. Malfoy's face was particularly terrified, because Thomas's smile at that moment was particularly familiar to him. It was the signature smile of his dear father Lucius. Whenever his dear old father smiled that smile, something bad always happened. Draco. Yes, cousin, what can I do for you? Malfoy jumped up from the sofa and said nervously. Go get the Weasley twins, Harry and Hermione, and tell them I have something to discuss with them. After a while, 4 Gryffindors appeared in the Slytherin common room. This scene feels weird no matter how you look at it. With the conflict between Gryffindor and Slytherin, although the younger grades won't say anything, there will always be 2 troublemakers from the older grades. Before anyone could sit down, a rough voice suddenly rang out. The Black family is really becoming more and more corrupt. Now they are even allowing Gryffindors to come here. Thomas Black, you are also a Slytherin. The person who said this was the 4th-year Slytherin Quidditch captain, Marcus Flint. Petrification charm. A voice rang out quickly, and Marcus, who was still shouting, fell straight to the ground as if he was moved, making a loud noise. At this moment, Thomas, who was sitting in the main seat, had slowly put the wand in his hand back into his wizard robe. The eyes of the younger Slytherin students were filled with enthusiasm at this moment, and even many of the older students were the same. Slytherin has always valued strength above all else, and Thomas's ability to cast a spell instantly has undoubtedly proven his strength, not to mention that his bloodline is very much in line with the wishes of most people in Slytherin Academy. Draco, was I hallucinating just now? I felt like a giant monster was calling my name. Thomas said with contempt that he had always been like this. If someone respected me an inch, I would respect them a yard, but if someone wanted to use him as a target to establish their authority, then he would be embarrassed. There are free steps, but he doesn't step on them. Isn't that a waste? He, Thomas Blake, had always been a frugal man. At the same time, a clear voice from the system sounded in his mind. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, your current Slytherin House recognition has reached 45%, and you will be rewarded with the spell Fire Curse. Thomas was very satisfied when he heard the news in his mind. Luo could be regarded as someone's signature move, and even in the early stage, its power should not be underestimated. Even though Thomas was delighted in his heart, he still looked indifferent on the surface. He glanced at the people around him and spoke lightly. In Slytherin, power has always been supreme. The prerequisite for defending honor is that you must have enough power. And a certain giant monster demonstrated this rule to us very well. Now, I invite my 4 Gryffindor friends to come to the Slytherin common room. If anyone has any objections or dissatisfaction, please raise them. I will not reject any challenge from you, regardless of age or number. If you have any dissatisfaction, just speak up. Thomas's tone was very calm, but the meaning behind it was extremely arrogant. Many junior Slytherin students, including Harry, had sparkling stars in their eyes at this moment. Strong strength and majesty were extremely attractive at any age. Several senior Slytherin students who rushed here after hearing the news looked at each other. It is no exaggeration to say that Thomas's speech has brought out the throne of Slytherin, as long as no one refutes Thomas's words from now on. Then a fixed mindset will be set in everyone's mind, that is, in Slytherin, everything will be decided by Thomas Black. The new king will sit on the throne, and as time goes by, people's thinking will become rigid, which will be a very terrifying thing. Moreover, Thomas is only a first-year student now. He will have nearly 7 years of his career at Hogwarts. During these 7 years, the entire Slytherin will only have the voice of Thomas Black. It can be said that one person has influenced the 13th class of Slytherin students. This is really terrifying. Of course, there is another saying that if someone steps forward to challenge and pull this arrogant king off the throne, they can naturally replace him. It's just that the influence is not that long-lasting. If Thomas were a few years older, they wouldn't have had any other thoughts. However, Thomas is only in the 1st grade now, and most of the little wizards at this age are still playing with the levitation spell. Even though Thomas Blake was knowledgeable, he couldn't have many more spells. All of a sudden, the minds of the senior Slytherin students became active. It's a pity that they have not learned about the culture of the great ancient eastern country, otherwise they would be shouting out loud, "Our kings, princes, generals, and ministers of different races. I, Lorenzo Mitt, challenge you." A black dragon leather glove was thrown in front of Thomas, and it could be seen that this senior had just finished the potions class. But so what? Some people were eager to be beaten, and Thomas was too happy to even have time. To be honest, he was afraid that no one would dare to challenge him. In a college like Slytherin, which has some extreme theories, strong strength is the best label for oneself. Lorenzo's challenge was like a domino that was pushed down, instantly triggering a huge chain reaction. Jackson Mary challenge. Yaji, hold the pick. 16 senior students stepped forward, including 8 7th-year students, 4 6th-year students, and 2 5th-year students. All of them were the best students in the current Slytherin grade. There were 1 or 2 prefects among them. "So, Mr. Black, which of us do you want to start with?" Lorenzo said with a sarcastic look in his eyes. In his opinion, no matter how powerful Thomas was, he was just a first-grade kid. He must have not expected that he would jump out all of a sudden just because he was bragging. So many people are probably scared now. Chapter 20. Facing the provocation, Thomas showed no anger on his face. Instead, he slowly stood up from his seat and looked at everyone with disdain. "My choice is simple, and I made it very clear at the beginning. No matter how many of you there are, I will continue." As soon as Thomas said this, there were gasps in the Slytherin common room. Everyone had thought that Thomas was arrogant, but no one had thought he would be this arrogant. Taking on 16 senior Slytherins alone was something that even the graduates wouldn't dare to try. Then let's get started. A group of Slytherin seniors have already drawn their wands, eager to try, and can't wait to teach this blind young master a lesson. When Malfoy, Daphne, and others saw this, they all drew out their wands. The situation had become serious. "Cousin, do you want me to look for my dad?" "Thomas, I can too." Just as Daphne and Draco were about to call for help, they saw Thomas smile, stretch out his hand, and slowly press down the 2 people's hands holding the wands. "No matter how many ants there are, they are still just ants," Thomas said with a chuckle, totally ignoring the angry people in front of him. "A grand banquet needs an audience. George, are you interested in doing business with Fred?" The Weasley twins listened to what Thomas said and immediately understood what he meant. "Of course, Master Black, we will definitely support you." "That's right, Master Black. Just leave this job to us," the Weasley twins said excitedly. Thomas nodded at the 2 excited people, then turned to look at Harry. "Harry, the duel requires a referee. I hope you can help me invite Professor Flitwick." "Of course, Thomas." Harry nodded, then pulled Hermione outside. "Very good. The last point is the venue. After all, the lounge is too small and it would be bad if someone was accidentally injured. Well, the grass outside Hogwarts Castle is nice." After Thomas said this last sentence, he stood up and walked out the door. Malfoy and others immediately followed Thomas. Several senior students also grabbed their wands and walked out. In the huge Slytherin common room, only Marcus, who had been petrified by Thomas earlier, was left lying on the ground. All Slytherin members were involved in this activity. Students from the other 3 houses saw this scene and were also very curious. However, after learning the final reason, the whole Hogwarts was in an uproar. Thomas would fight against 16 senior students as a first-year student. Even though most people thought that Thomas was hitting the stone with a soft rock, he still couldn't resist everyone's curiosity. Even many Gryffindor students spontaneously made a few simple banners, pulled them and ran out to cheer for Thomas. After all, in the eyes of Gryffindor, no matter who you are, as long as you fight Slytherin, then we are good friends. On the grass, almost everyone from Hogwarts School gathered there. Not only students, but many professors have also come here. The 16 senior Slytherin students are also under increased pressure at this moment. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, this was no longer a simple duel. If they lost, they would definitely be nailed to the pillar of shame at Hogwarts. Whenever new students enter school in the future, they will think of this interesting story. Or if 16 senior students gang up on a first-year student, even if they win, there will be no glory. From the moment they walked out of the lounge, their reputation was doomed. Whether you win or lose, it will become a joke. It's so lively. An elderly voice full of joy sounded, and everyone turned to look. The person who came was the headmaster of Hogwarts, Albus Dumbledore. Professor Dumbledore, in this kind of duel, the age and number difference between the two sides is too great. I think it is better to. Minerva, relax. We need to have some faith in the child, right? And even if I step forward to stop this duel now, I'm afraid the little guy involved won't be happy about it. The old bee smiled and blinked and spoke. Professor McGonagall could only sigh helplessly when she saw the advice. After all, she was not Thomas's dean and could not interfere directly. He could only focus his attention on Thomas in the field, draw his wand, and be ready to save Thomas at the critical moment. The Weasley twins moved excitedly among the crowd, their bags filled with silver sickles and copper nuts, as well as a few valuable gold galleons. Most people bet on the 16-man team to win. After all, no matter how strong Thomas was, he was only a freshman. In everyone's eyes, it was too difficult for a freshman to defeat 16 senior students head-on. So much so that Thomas's odds are as high as 1 to 16, which is a terrifyingly high probability. 10 gold galleons, bet on my cousin to win. Of course, Master Malfoy. No one would go against money. The Weasley twins smiled and put away Malfoy's gold galleons, then recorded them on the scoreboard. Following Malfoy, Daphne, Hermione and others also came to place their bets, 6 gold galleons and 5 silver sickles respectively, which shows how confident the two girls are in Thomas's victory. Until Harry. Why can't I? Harry said doubtfully while holding a handful of galleons. The Weasley twins looked at each other and then sighed helplessly. Harry, are you sure you want to bet 40 gold galleons? Yeah, can't I? Isn't that enough? I have more in my dormitory. Can you wait for me and I'll get it now? Harry was about to leave when he was stopped by the Weasley twins, one on each side. There was no way. Harry, who had just inherited the Potter family treasury, still had a very vague concept of money, and most of the students were just playing around. In Harry's case, if Thomas wins, not only will they win money, but the two brothers will also have to pay out of pocket. That's enough, Harry, we'll record this for you. Yes, 40 gold galleons, right? Harry, please sign your name here. If Master Black wins, you can just come over and exchange it. Fred said as he tore off a receipt and handed it to Harry. Therefore, with the efforts of Harry and others, Thomas's odds of 1 to 16 were reduced to 1 to 4. Chapter 21. Professor Filiway stood between the two parties, turned to look at Thomas again, and asked. Thomas Blake, are you sure you want to accept their challenge? Yes, Professor Flitwick. Thomas nodded and began to speak in a calm tone. Well, in that case, I declare now that the duel officially begins. As Professor Flitwick finished speaking, the 17 people in the venue raised their wands in front of them, then bowed and walked to both sides of the venue. This is standard wizard duel etiquette. 3, 2, 1. 17 people turned around in an instant, and the wands in their hands burst into brilliant light. Stupefy. The thug fell to the ground. Petrification charm. Apuno. Thousands of bullets fired at once. Conf Ringo. Explosive spell. Several spells were continuously uttered by 16 people, and magic was cast towards Thomas. Malfoy and others outside the field couldn't help but clench their fists. Protego. Armor protection. For a moment, explosions continued to sound in the field, raising huge smoke and dust. Professor McGonagall was about to rush into the field, but was held down by Dumbledore on the shoulder. When the smoke and dust cleared, Thomas was seen standing alone in the golden light, unharmed, not even a hair on his head, not even his wizard robe was torn. Disarming charm. Oxio. Flying curse. The sounds of 2 spells rang out quickly from Thomas's mouth, and a deep green light flashed by. 16 magic wands broke away from everyone's hands and flew towards Thomas. Perfect, what a perfect combination of spells. And this exquisite proficiency, 10 points for Slytherin. Professor Flitwick shouted loudly. He had forgotten that he was not in the charms classroom, but in the outdoor fighting field. When wizards are deprived of their wands, they are basically no different from muggles, except for a few extremely powerful ones who can cast spells without a wand. It just so happens that these 16 people do not have such powerful talents. The outcome of this game is already clear. Thomas put his other hand on his chest, then bent down 90 degrees and saluted the 16 people. This is also one of the etiquettes of wizard duels. Both sides must bow in return after the duel. The winner is Thomas Black of Slytherin House. Cheers, kids! Professor Fried said excitedly. There was a fierce cheering outside the venue, especially from Gryffindor. The Slytherins were naturally not to be outdone and also increased their volume. Although the other two colleges did not have this wonderful sense of victory and defeat, they were also cheering and shouting loudly. This was a basic respect for the strong and the winner. Thomas stood up, smiled and nodded to several professors and Dumbledore, then walked out. The originally crowded crowd dispersed on the road, and the students from Slytherin House 1 followed Thomas closely. From this moment on, Thomas is the greatest authority in Slytherin besides Snape. The new king has ascended the throne. The crown falls on Slytherin, Black is always on top. Snape frowned as he watched this scene. This scene reminded him of someone, and Thomas was doing better than that person now. He couldn't even imagine how huge the force Thomas would gather under his command after 7 years. Quirrell, who was watching the fight in the corner, trotted back to the office quickly. The burning pain on the back of his head told him that his master was going to lecture him. Inside the office, Quirrell quickly locked the door, then untied the thick white cloth on his head. Behind his head was a strange human face, and the owner of this face was Voldemort. Owner. Quirrell spoke respectfully, then stopped talking, waiting for Voldemort's decision. Oh, another Black, another Slytherin, that jet black hair reminds me of my loyal servant, Regulus. But he is obviously more powerful. He unified Slytherin in his first year. Yes, this proves that he is very ambitious. If you have strength and ambition, you will naturally have a desire for power. Get close to him, understand him, win him over, my servant. Master, he is very popular now, I am afraid. Waste. Quirrell was startled by Voldemort's roar, and then hurriedly spoke. Master said yes, I am a waste, I am a waste. Voldemort listened to Quirrell's cowardly voice and sighed helplessly. In the past, he would have looked down on such a guy, but the situation was special now, so forget it, just bear with it for now. No, trust yourself my servant. I have to be patient, but contacting that child will help me regain my own strength faster. I heard that he also opened the vault belonging to the Black family. Yes, yes, Master. Approach him with your identity as the defense against the dark arts professor. At the same time, I will prepare a great gift for him. About real power. Isn't this too much for you, Master? After all, your current strength. No, my servant, it is necessary. In the Slytherin lounge, Thomas sat naturally on the main seat on the sofa in the middle. Other Slytherin students, except for Thomas's confidants, sat consciously on the periphery of the lounge. An invisible sense of class permeated the Slytherin common room, but strangely, no one felt there was anything wrong with it. This is Slytherin, the strong are on top and the weak are on the bottom. Thomas's feat of 1v16 today has thoroughly proved his strength. By the way, it's dividend time. That's right. As George and Fred talked, they poured the coins in the bag onto the table, making a rustling sound. The people sitting on the sofa naturally became the biggest beneficiaries besides Thomas, and Harry was the biggest beneficiary among them. There was nothing he could do about it because he alone paid 40 gold galleons. When the other little snakes in the lounge saw this scene, they couldn't help but feel envious, and then they secretly regretted why they didn't take a chance when placing the bet, otherwise they might have been able to exchange their bicycle for a motorcycle now. Just after everyone had divided the spoils, Thomas came up with a bold idea. Harry becomes Harry. Chapter 22. Thomas took out a magic wand from his wizard robe. Light came out from the tip of the wand and a blue barrier enveloped everyone on the sofa. Oh my god, it's the sound isolating spell. This should be a spell for 5th graders. Hermione said in surprise. Everyone's faces turned serious. What Thomas was going to talk about next must be a very serious matter, otherwise there would be no need to cast this spell. Thomas glanced at the people who had serious expressions, then spoke. In fact, from the beginning, I intended to tell you this plan, a plan to overthrow Snape. After hearing what Thomas said, several people couldn't help but gasp. The old bat has a sharp tongue and everyone in Hogwarts has suffered from the bat for a long time. Different emotions appeared on everyone's faces. The Weasley twins were filled with joy. For them, Playing a prank, especially one targeting an extremely challenging person, was more like a reward. Daphne and Hermione were very worried, not understanding why Thomas suddenly had such an idea. Malfoy and Harry were even more confused and didn't know what to say. As for Goyle and Crabbe, they were now BG on the light wall outside the blue cover and couldn't hear the voices of the crowd at all. I have arranged work for each of you in this matter. If you don't want to, you can withdraw now. I won't force anyone. I'm in. Daphne was the first to speak up in support of Thomas. Whether it was the mission given by the family or the strength Thomas had shown during this period, she felt an inexplicable fondness for the man in front of her. It's as attractive as cheese attracts mice. Master Black, look at what you said. It's really awkward. That's right. In the whole Hogwarts, when it comes to pranks, no one dares to say we two brothers are second to none. Fred and George said with excitement on their faces. The joy of playing a prank on the old bat made them unable to suppress the smirk on their faces. Hermione and Harry looked at each other. As a Gryffindor, they would definitely not lack the courage to help their friends. I'm joining in too. Count me in. Now the only person who has not expressed his opinion in the field is Malfoy. On one side is his godfather Snape, and on the other side is his cousin. Both sides are his loved ones and friends. I'm joining in too. Very good, then the battle plan will begin now. As Thomas spoke, he took out a notebook and quickly wrote down a list of item names, then took out 10 gold galleons and handed them to the Weasley twins. No matter what method you use, I need everything on this list to appear in my dormitory tonight. We want the best things, and we return more and pay less. Any questions? The Weasley twins took the gold galleons handed over by Thomas and quickly glanced at the items on the list. An extremely subtle expression appeared on their faces, and then they said firmly. Don't worry, Master Black. You don't need to wait till night. These things will appear in front of you before dinner tonight. After hearing their conversation, Thomas nodded in satisfaction, then looked at Daphne and Hermione again. Daphne, Hermione, I need you to teach Harry how to talk and some of the movements of a girl, okay? Of course, but Thomas. What? Before Daphne could finish her words, a surprised voice suddenly rang out, and the owner of the voice was Harry. At this moment, Harry's little head was filled with big question marks. Thomas knew that the highlight of this revenge was coming. Whether the pain and insults of dissecting a toad for 2 hours can be avenged successfully depends on this wave. Thomas sighed silently, then looked at Harry with a lost expression and spoke. Harry, I thought we were friends. This wave of bitterness directly raised Harry's emotional level to the highest level. Of course, Thomas, we are friends. Harry said with full seriousness. Thomas saw this scene, nodded with satisfaction, and then continued. So, Harry, are you willing to watch Snape call me into his dark office every afternoon to dissect a toad for 2 hours? No. I don't want to. So you'll help me, Harry. Of course, we are friends, Thomas. Harry said this righteously, completely unaware of the expressions of concern for the idiots on the faces of the others around him. Oh, by the way, except Malfoy, because he is also very passionate now. Malfoy suddenly stood up from the sofa, looked at Thomas with a firm expression and spoke. So what is my mission, cousin? Thomas was very satisfied when he saw Malfoy volunteering himself, and then he spoke. Your mission is very important. Go investigate the backgrounds of the 16 people who are dueling with me today, and ask about their future intentions. No problem, just leave it to me, cousin. In the principal's office. Professor Dumbledore, I think we can no longer let him go on like this. You really should go to the Slytherin common room and see what's going on. It won't be long before Thomas Black has the final say in Slytherin. Besides, he is only in the 1st grade now. If you think about it, this kind of situation never happened to that person when he was in the 1st grade. Well, Severus, we should have a little more faith in the child, shouldn't we? But, Professor Dumbledore, Thomas. As professors, when we discover problems, we should solve them instead of solving the students' problems, right? Don't worry, Severus. After all, that guy back then didn't have any friends. Friendship is a deep and sincere emotion that allows us to live and grow more meaningfully. When we have the company and support of friends, we can pursue our dreams and lives more confidently, and these are exactly what the mysterious people never have. By the way, do you want dessert? Honeyduck's newest cockroach pile, strawberry flavored. As Dumbledore spoke, he grabbed a handful of crawling cockroaches and stuffed them into his mouth, chewing them happily with a satisfied smile on his face. Seeing this, Snape knew that it was useless to say more, so he turned around and left the headmaster's office. On the other hand, thanks to Thomas, the Weasley twins were able to appear in Thomas's dormitory with bags in hand without any hindrance. Chapter 23. In the dormitory, Daphne sat on Thomas's bed, with Elise in her arms purring from time to time. From time to time, Iris would rub her head against Daphne's palm, and all her expressions showed that she was enjoying being stroked by Daphne. Hermione stood at the window, teaching Harry over and over again how a girl should speak and behave. Thomas was observing silently from the side, offering his opinions from time to time. As arranged by Thomas, the three Malfoys had gone to meet the 16 people who had challenged them earlier. Boom boom boom. There was a knock on the door, and soon the voices of the Weasley twins were heard from the other side. Master Black, it's us, the goods have arrived. Thomas patted the wrinkles on his wizard robe, then quickly stood up and walked towards the door. I have to say, the efficiency of the Weasley twins is really amazing. Thomas took the package and opened it. Inside were 3 bottles of potions, a set of Gryffindor first-year female school uniform, a pair of beret shoes and white boneless socks. Snape was so fascinated by this. Harry, stop practicing and come here and drink these potions. Thomas said, then he held up 2 bottles of potions and walked towards Harry. Daphne and Hermione looked curious. Harry nodded when he saw this, and immediately took the potion from Thomas's hand, opened the bottle cap and started twisting it. The next second, Harry's hair grew visibly longer and reached his waist in an instant. Oh my god! My hair! No, my voice! A soft girlish voice came out of Harry's mouth. It's the result of the hair growth potion and the mimeograph potion. The effect will last for about 48 hours. As for the hair, you can just cut it off yourself when the time comes. Thomas began to explain. Another bottle can change the color of your hair, Harry. Harry nodded obediently, then took the potion handed to him by Thomas and drank it again. Harry's long black hair gradually turned red as the potion took effect. Well, it looks like it worked well. Thomas grabbed a handful of Harley's red hair and observed it. The drug was working very stably and there was no problem with split ends. It looked like high-quality hair. Then the next step is to change. Hey, Daphne, and Hermione, why are you pushing me? Just as Thomas was about to take the next step, Daphne and Hermione came from his left and right and escorted Thomas out of the dormitory. Of course, it wasn't just Thomas who was there. The Weasley twins were also invited out by the two, leaving 3 more helpless people in the empty corridor. There was no choice but for Thomas to continue lying on the sofa in the lounge, while the Weasley twins said that they had to go back to the Gryffindor lounge first. After all, it was not good for the 2 little lions to stay in a snake's den. They are already in the 4th year, unlike Harry and Hermione, who are first-year students who are fearless and don't care about anything. Thomas didn't say anything about this, but just asked the 2 to bring their cameras to dinner so as not to miss such a wonderful moment. Time passed quickly, and during this process, many of the original 16 people, led by Malfoy, came to apologize and reconcile. Many people also swore allegiance to Thomas, which did not surprise Thomas. Although Slytherin advocated pure-blood supremacy, there were not so many purebloods in the wizarding world today. However, although the bloodline has become thinner, the power of the nobles in the magical world has not decreased much. So for other wizards, there are still not many changes, but Thomas doesn't mind giving these graduates some good job opportunities. In the restaurant, Slytherin students kept coming over to toast Thomas with pumpkin juice. Thomas usually took a sip while the others finished the drink. It can be said that he understood the drinking culture to the fullest. A good dinner was turned into an exchange party. There were even many students from other houses coming to offer pumpkin juice, with the largest number coming from Gryffindor. Although they were all sipping at a time, there were too many people. Just as Thomas was about to pull out Malfoy as a substitute for the drink, an exclamation was heard. Many people's attention was drawn to the gate. Oh my god, that red-haired girl is so pretty. That is to say, those emerald eyes are also super beautiful, but do we have such a person in Gryffindor? Yes, right? Is there? Harry was now the center of attention, while Daphne and Hermione had come to Thomas's side without him noticing. It seems to be working well, Thomas said with a smile, but the next second, the smile on his face froze, because at this moment a figure with platinum blonde slicked back hair appeared in front of Harley. No, didn't Malfoy participate in the plan? Why didn't he know it was Harry? Could it be? Damn it, I really shouldn't have expected so much from Malfoy's ability to understand. I should have made it clear. At the same time, Malfoy fiddled with his slicked back hair in a very showy manner, raised his neck, coughed twice, then stretched out his hand and spoke in a cocky manner. My name is Malfoy. Draco Malfoy. My father is a school governor, my cousin is Thomas Black, and my godfather is the head of Slytherin. Are you interested in having dinner with me? Thomas was completely speechless when he saw this scene. It was great that it was another family tree opening introduction. Let go of that Gryffindor girl, you bloody Malfoy. An angry shout was heard, and a figure with short red hair rushed straight between Malfoy and Harry. It was Ronald. Originally, he, Harry and Hermione were in a trio, but because of Thomas, Harry and Hermione always went to Slytherin, causing him to be left alone frequently. He had no choice but to come to the restaurant alone to have dinner, but what did he see? The evil Malfoy was bullying the poor Gryffindor girl. As the messenger of justice and the hero of Gryffindor, he, Ronald Weasley, must step forward to stop it. Until the next moment, when he saw Harry's face, Ronald was stunned where he was. He couldn't believe that there was such a beautiful girl. At this moment, his information exploded instantly. He grabbed Harry's little hand and stood in front of Malfoy like a true hero. But before he could show his masculinity, a soft voice suddenly sounded. You hurt me, Ronald. Ronald was stunned at first, then his body was suddenly pushed away, and a huge black robe appeared in front of him. Chapter 24. Are you all right? Snape said this with a trembling expression. Many students in the restaurant couldn't help but gasp when they saw this scene. The old bat no longer sprays venom, and his tone of voice is a little gentle. For a moment, everyone present felt a little uncomfortable. But Snape, as the person involved, couldn't care less. He carefully looked at the red-haired, green-eyed Gryffindor girl in front of him. They looked so much like her that for a moment he felt like he had gone back in time. It was as if Lily appeared in front of him again. At this moment, his heart was as chaotic as a tangled mess. The majestic aura of the Slytherin headmaster and potions professor in the past had completely disappeared. Great, oh Merlin, this is the angle. Fred, a little lower, yes, right here, great. The Weasley twins in the corner were already frantically pressing the shutter buttons in their hands. As for the camera, it was borrowed from their first-year student, Jijiko nodding. As a member of the news department, Jijiko contributed his camera without any hesitation after learning this important news. What's your name, kid? Harry Potter, Professor, I attended your class yesterday. Harry's clear, lark-like voice echoed in Snape's mind. Harry. Oh, I must have been too tired from brewing potions to notice such an outstanding child like you. Snape consciously filtered out the word Potter from his mind. Harry looked at Snape's gentle face, and her little head was filled with big question marks. Is brewing potions too tiring? Then why was his posture so perfect when he was spraying poison in the classroom yesterday? Gurgle. A voice suddenly sounded, interrupting the conversation between the two. Harley lowered her head embarrassedly, covering her stomach with her little hands, and her little face quickly turned red. Snape also quickly noticed this, and he took Harry's hand and walked towards the dining table, with the corners of his mouth unconsciously rising. However, the table they went to was not that of Gryffindor, but that of Slytherin. This made the little lions very dissatisfied, but Professor McGonagall was not in the cafeteria at this time, so the little lions could only be angry but not say anything. After all, Snape is a professor, and a famous potion master. If the person in front of them was just an ordinary Slytherin, the little lions would inevitably go straight up and start a fight. Ronald, who was knocked to the ground at this time, slowly got up from the ground, rubbing his head and muttering to himself. Ugh, that hurts, damn, what just happened is... Before Ronald finished speaking, he felt several eyes focused on him, and a bad feeling rose from the bottom of his heart. Then an extremely distinctive voice sounded. 10 points will be deducted from Gryffindor for harassing classmates. A feeling of frustration rose from Ronald's heart, although he thought he had done nothing wrong. No, he was just saving a beautiful Gryffindor girl from the damn Malfoy. What could he do wrong? When Harry saw Ronald with a constipated look on his face, he immediately felt something was wrong. Fearing that he would continue to lose points, he hurriedly blinked at Ronald. It would have been fine if he hadn't blinked, but as soon as he blinked, the situation suddenly changed. Ronald was stunned at first, then he looked at Harry who was sitting at the Slytherin table and blinking at him rapidly. At this moment he seemed to understand. Professor Snape, even though you are a professor, you cannot force a Gryffindor girl to sit at the Slytherin table. As soon as Ronald said this, everyone present gasped. Brave, really brave. Oh my god, whose general is this? Some people think that Heath Ledger's Joker is the most classic, some people think that Arthur's Joker is the most shocking, but they are all wrong. And you, Ronald Weasley, my friend, we all know that you are the real clown. The Weasley twins stared with their eyes wide open, excitedly recording this wonderful scene of their younger brother, waiting to share it with their brothers and parents when they get home. Harry also covered his eyes at this moment. Malfoy looked at Ronald in shock, as if he was looking at a dead person, while Thomas silently gave a thumbs up. But Ronald doesn't care about all of this. Who doesn't like the feeling of being the center of attention, especially a child? Poor Ronald had no idea of the seriousness of the situation. Good, very good. Snape's face was so gloomy at the moment. The first second he saw Harry, he had even decided to go to Dumbledore's office and help Harry with the transfer procedures. To alert the monkey, a live chicken is needed, and Ronald is the first one to step forward. Talk back to the professor, Gryffindor will lose 20 points. Why? Before Ronald could finish his words, his mouth was covered by a big hand, and the owner of this big hand was his brother, Percy Weasley. As the head of Gryffindor, he had to stop his foolish brother. He had to consider the situation when trying to show off for the girl. If he continued like this, Gryffindor would have very few points left. I guess I will have to be deducted by my younger brother. I'm sorry, Professor Snape, Ronald is just a child, I'm here to apologize to you on his behalf. Percy said sincerely. Snape nodded, and the matter was exposed. The effect of killing the chicken to scare the monkey had been achieved. After all, he was a professor, and there was no need to be hard on a child. After a small episode, the restaurant returned to its previous state. Although everyone was trying hard to eat, many people's eyes were still focused on the Slytherin table. Soon a sumptuous dinner appeared in front of Harry. Harry, who had not eaten for the whole afternoon, hurriedly started eating. After a while, he choked and his little face turned red. Snape, who was watching from the side, hurried forward and patted Harry's back gently and considerately. Eat slowly, there is still a lot of food. Snape said as he handed Harry a glass of pumpkin juice. Goodong goodong. After taking 2 big gulps of pumpkin juice, Harley felt much better. Thank you, Professor. Harry said in a low voice. After all, he could feel the gazes of those around him. He felt a little embarrassed to choke on his food in front of so many people. Snape heard the soft voice and felt as if his heart was suddenly hit by something. No. It's okay. Chapter 25. At the dining table, Ronald kept stuffing chicken legs into his mouth. At this moment, he just wanted to turn his grief and anger into appetite. With Ronald's example, Malfoy gave up the idea of talking to Harry and sat quietly next to Thomas, eating potatoes in his bowl. Still a very normal day. That night, Malfoy finally couldn't resist his curiosity and asked the question that had been buried in his heart for a long time. Cousin, that's the Gryffindor today, who is he? Thomas did not answer Malfoy's question, but just smiled and shrugged his shoulders. Didn't he say he was a name? Malfoy was stunned at first, and then his dormant memories began to awaken. Thomas did not explain the conspiracy on the 6-person sofa very clearly at the time, but just assigned each person a task, so Malfoy did not think much about it. But now it seemed that all the clues were connected together, and a shattering sound rang out in Malfoy's chest. No. At the same time in the Gryffindor dormitory, Ronald was lying on the bed feeling lost, but he couldn't fall asleep for a long time. At this moment, the figure with long red hair kept echoing in his mind. Her eyes were so beautiful, like 2 crystal clear emeralds. Oh, it would be great if I could see her again. Ronald, did you see Hedwig's feed? A gentle voice exploded in his mind like a thunder. It's her. The next second, Ronald jumped up from the bed with a bang. Fluffy red hair, egg yolk, oh no, red school uniform and black skirt, it's her, it's really her, here she comes, I'm not dreaming. Ronald looked around frantically, trying to wake himself up from the dream, while Neville beside him stood there in a daze, as if he had been petrified. Harry looked at his two roommates and couldn't help feeling a little angry. They had lived and eaten together for such a long time. The only thing he did was that his hair grew a little longer, he took off his glasses, and changed his clothes, but they still recognized him. Forget it, find it yourself. Harry thought about this and went to his bed to search. That's Harry's bed. Harry couldn't help but frown when he heard Ronald's words. Of course he knew that this was his bed. But it doesn't matter. Feel free to look through it. When Harry comes back and asks about it, I'll say it was me who did it. When Harley heard what Ronald said, she was stunned, and then her face turned a little red because of anger. Ronald, who was standing by, thought that Harley was moved by what he said, so he decided to strike while the iron was hot and deepen their relationship. Until Harry put on his glasses and lifted his hair from his forehead, revealing the lightning-shaped scar, and said angrily, "Ronald, look carefully, I'm Harry." "Oh, it's Harry, Harry." Two broken sounds rang out in the Gryffindor dormitory. At this moment, there were two more sad people in the Hogwarts castle. Principal's office. Dumbledore looked at Snape in front of him with a frown on his face. He grabbed handfuls of cockroaches from the drawer and stuffed them into his mouth. It seemed that only the extreme sweetness could keep his mind clear. He was becoming increasingly confused about today's kids, including Snape. He had a feeling that if Voldemort suddenly appeared at this moment, Snape would probably pull out his wand and bury Voldemort the next moment. A moment later, the drawer that was originally filled with cockroaches was empty, and Snape showed no intention of leaving. Dumbledore knew that at this moment, there seemed to be no way for him to avoid this topic. But how could Harry really go to Slytherin? Harry Potter was his chosen savior, so he arranged for his confidant Weasley to be by Harry's side, including Hermione, a little muggle-born wizard, to represent his ideal of equality. Slytherin already has a Thomas Black, so Harry Potter must stay in Gryffindor. Dumbledore made up his mind, sighed, looked at Snape in front of him and spoke. "Severus, it's already very late. You should also be considerate of me, a man over 100 years old, right? So, Harry must join Slytherin," Snape said firmly. At this moment, Dumbledore felt a little choked up as he looked at Snape in front of him. Who was that BDS idea? Now the original Lily's joke can no longer be used as a PUA, because Harley is now a replica of Lily back then. H.U. Thomas, who was practicing firefighting in the room of requirement, couldn't help but wipe his nose. "Who's thinking about me? Mike and the others? Never mind, let's just keep practicing the spell. Severus, the world is not peaceful right now. Do you remember the prophecy? Neither of them could survive. Only one survived. The Tale of July defeated the darkness. We all know this, don't we? Harry does look a lot like Lily, but this is only temporary, isn't it? Children's curiosity comes and goes quickly. Who knows when Harry will turn back into his black-haired self again? This is all his own wish. Neither you nor I can force him to change. Instead of dwelling on these things now, why not focus on the present? Have you read the latest issue of the Daily Prophet? The Goblin Bank was robbed, but nothing was lost because I asked Hagrid to take it out in advance. I can tell you responsibly, Severus, that object is a Philosopher's Stone. It is in the possession of my friend Nico Melli, and its usefulness lies in the creation of an elixir of life. But the immortality brought by the Philosopher's Stone is imperfect. Everything has a price. The price of eternal life is emotion. If a person loses his emotion, then what is the difference between him and death? He is nothing more than a walking corpse. So, Nick gave it to me for safekeeping, giving up his immortality. But, there is always someone who is particularly obsessed with eternal life, right? And we all know that person. So, you mean that person is back? Snape drew his wand and prepared to leave. Dumbledore's eyebrows twitched wildly when he saw this scene. Wait. Severus. Snape stopped and turned around. Professor Dumbledore, if you need anything, please speak quickly. I have something urgent to deal with right now. Dumbledore was startled again when he heard Snape's words and spoke hastily. The Philosopher's Stone is at Hogwarts. What? Professor Dumbledore, you know what you are doing. Snape said very angrily. Dumbledore couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief when he saw this. Everything was finally made right for him. So, Severus, you have to protect that child well. After all, his eyes, he looks a lot like Lily. If you enjoyed this video, Please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.